open the meeting at 9:04 a.m. and thank you for your attendance. Do we have anyone to move on the confirmation of the minutes of the 13th of September? Councillor McMullen.
I'll move that the minutes of the ordinary meeting held on the 13th of September 2023 be confirmed.
Do we have a second? Councillor Ladbroke. Any opposition? Does anyone wish to speak?
You probably should acknowledge that Councillor Hancock.
Oh yeah, good point. We do have Councillor Hancock online, so just for the benefit of anyone watching the video.
Question.
I wasn't at the last meeting, so I can't second it.
Right, okay, so that's a good point. We can have a different seconder, Councillor Burkett. And, right, any opposition? We'll go to the vote. All those in favour? So you can abstain if you want to, or you can vote for it, whatever. There's no real rule on whether people are here or not. No, so you can vote for it, whatever you want to do. Anybody against?
I'll just abstain because I wasn't at the meeting.
Right, okay. So that will be taken as 8-1, if I can call for division. Okay, moving on, is there any other minutes? And if not, we'll get on to the agenda. (11.1), page 36. (11.1), page 36, monthly financial report as at the 31st of August 2023. Councillor Edwards.
I'll move that the council receive and note the monthly financial report for the period ended 31st of August 2023.
Do we have a seconder? Councillor Burkett. Any opposition? Does anyone wish to speak? We're going to go to the vote.
Question.
Please go ahead.
Sorry. Just if someone's there, but just with the sale yards, I just noted that our materials and services have dropped a significant amount, as depreciation. And I'm just wondering, is that because we've changed some operating matters, or is it because the sale numbers have been down, or I just want to double check why that might be.
What page is it?
46.
This is on page 46.
Thank you.
Do you have to take that on notice?
Through you, Mr. V. Yeah, we'll take that on notice and we'll come back to councillor with an answer.
Yep. Perfect. Thank you.
Righto. So does anyone wish to speak to the motion? Then we'll go back, we'll go to the vote. All those in favour?
Yes.
9-0. And CEO will be able to get that for later in the meeting.
Sure, no problems.
Righto. So moving on to the next item. 11.2, page 48. 2024 Land Revaluation Program. Do we have a mover? Councillor Burkett.
I'd like to move the council receive and note the officer's report as presented.
Do we have a seconder? Councillor Taylor. Any opposition? Does anyone wish to speak? We're going to go to the vote. All those in favour?
Yes.
9-0. Okay, page 51, Memorandum of Understanding, the Salvation Army. I've got a question. With this one, does it preclude us, obviously it's Salvation Army in Brisbane and they may use their local area, but does it preclude us in a disaster having other options that we use?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. No, it doesn't. It just fast tracks arrangements with the Salvation Army in a disaster. We don't have to. Yeah, it just streamlines the administration and that. But it's not like an exclusive. Like ideally, you could have these in place for 5 or 6 service providers. That it's just to get rapid response and set up out here. So
find out which one would be able to deliver quicker or better or whatever.
Definitely, but absolutely not exclusive just to Salvation Army. So
okay, so yeah, please go ahead.
Deputy Director Cam, just noting that there's a cost attached at the bottom of the report, if they're required, do they charge us and then we get get that money back through the government? Is that what happens?
Yeah, so Councillor Hancock, that's correct. It depends on the timing of the event, but if it's in the first 90 days, it comes under what they call counter disaster operations, which is funded, and then if it's more of a longer term event, that starts to become under different categories of flood. But the answer is yes, it is cost recoverable under the QDMA sort of arrangements. Yep.
Perfect, thank you.
No other questions? Councillor Edwards, did you want
I'll
to?
move. No,
You were moving that?
Yeah.
Please go ahead.
I'd like to move that Council authorise the Chief Executive Officer or Delegate to enter into a Memorandum of Understanding with the Salvation Army Queensland Property Trust through the Salvation Army Emergency Services for a 5-year term for the purpose of assisting Council with planning, response and recovery measures for disasters.
Councillor Taylor, do you want to second that as you were? Second. Does anyone wish to speak to the motion? Then we'll go to the vote. All those in favour?
Yes.
9-0. Page 66. 13.1, Surat Lawn Cemetery.
Mr Mayor, I'd like to move that.
Please go ahead.
I move that Council 1 receive and note the report by way of Council Resolution OM/08.2023/35. 2, I want to change to, I want to make 2, 3 and I want to put 2 in there if that's okay. So number 2, that Council go out to community consultation on the upgrades to the Surat Lawn Cemetery, including feedback on aesthetically improving the cemetery, as well as the lawn.
Just got a question. Point 2 doesn't seem to be in the report of the last. Be provided.
Mr
Report.
Mayor, Councillor Hancock hasn't finished moving her.
Oh, right. Okay, sorry, I thought you'd finished.
No, and number 3 is consider this project and staging in the overall suite project business case. I want to say consider this project and any staging in a quarterly review.
So just through the chair for completeness, so that officers understand what, if the motion gets up, what exactly is being resolved. Are you talking about a quarterly review within the 23-24 budget? Because
Yes,
it just put it, yeah, okay.
Yes, please. Yep.
Are you finished, Councillor Hancock?
Yes. I just want to ask I'm just looking who's in chamber. I just want to ask the Director, Matt. The reason I said that is somewhere in the report you did say that maybe you could do it within the WRU budget, some staging of it, and so that's why I wanted to have a look at a quarterly review rather than the 24-25 budget. Is that correct? Did I read that right?
Councillor Hancock, through the chair, we couldn't complete the whole project. It would just be a staged approach. So fencing would be one of those options we could achieve. Some of it's a bit sort of, landowner kind of, I guess it's, the fencing's not up to scratch on the northern side, so we'd need to upgrade that. And we could do some tree planting and so forth, and some aesthetics like that, but gardening. But in terms of the major works for the lawn cemetery itself, with the concrete beams and that sort of thing, that would require significant capex investment.
Yep, no worries. Thank you. Yeah, I'm happy with that. With the 1, 2 and 3 that I moved. Thanks.
Councillor Burkett.
Director Matt, page 68. I noticed this the other day when is it running out of room, or just that it's very curved? The bottom section, the rows have gone off about 4 rows. This is way before any of us in this room probably, but yeah, is it the lots are all out of alignment? Is that running out of room as well? Is it, or is one of the reasons why we're going over there? It's hard to see because the lots are sort of curving on an angle to the left pretty severely. Is that so? There's the lots all. I just don't know how. Well, I don't know how that would have happened, but is there more room for people that want to be still buried historically, like how that was down that bottom end?
Yeah, so through the chair, Councillor Beckett, there is sufficient room to put a lawn cemetery in, 1,000 square metres. But you're quite right. Historically, it's a bit, the plots are all over the place a bit. So, but there is sufficient plots there for whoever's earmarked them to go in at the moment.
So, just through the chair, just to improve that advice, do you know at this point how much life the cemetery has left?
I'd have to take that on notice, CEO.
Good word to use.
Longevity might be the better word.
Yeah, Councillor Hancock, please go ahead.
Yeah, so part of what they've done at the cemetery is we're trying to tidy up because they are sort of a bit out of alignment on sort of beauty. If you have a look at the purple square on the left-hand side, that is all area there that new graves are going in, and they're picking up the alignments in there. So there is still a fair bit of room there to have a choice of which way you want to be buried. So I don't believe that it would be encroaching on that space.
Councillor McMullen.
Mr Mayor, I'm all supportive of it, but I would have thought, and like the Roma cemetery, once the lawn cemetery goes in, unless you've pre-purchased a plot, everyone will go in the lawn cemetery.
So you change your...
And there'll be a different
Well, that's
cost.
the way Roma's set up.
And I imagine there'd be a different cost structure too, wouldn't it? I would imagine.
Well, I don't know as much any difference in the fees, but you obviously
Save on the headstone.
save on the, yeah.
Do we have to have it that way? I would have just assumed, when I put this up, I just assumed we were giving our Surat community a choice of which way they'd like to be buried.
Well, Mr Mayor, this is only my thoughts. We're going to run out of room. You won't be able to fit both in there. Anyway, that's enough.
Yeah, the other question that I had, this report does not enact the resolution about including understanding of arrangements for other lawn cemeteries across the region. I can't see it in there. Can anyone see it in there?
It's just focusing on Surat.
So it's not dealing with the resolution that was asked, point 2 of the resolution. So that was the idea, was to get what we're doing in the other regions back before we come and decide whether we should put that commitment, financial commitment, into Surat. Certainly don't mind the whatever, but we sort of try and balance it out with what we're doing in the regions generally, and that's what point 2 is about, and I can't see it in the report. And I realise it might be a different director that might have to get that information, but the point was, it was to come back so we can balance it up and see the financial cost. Is it a saving even? What is it? Like, there's the beams that would have to go in, but then is it a saving, or is it what is it? You know?
So through the chair, you...
Mr Mayor, sorry, you go, Madam CEO.
You just, in point 1, to capture those comments, you could say, Council receive and note the report for Waru only by way of council resolution. That way you know that there's still another part of that resolution to be enacted, if that helps, Council.
Yeah, I was going to suggest that I would happy to amend it to council receive and note that the report enacts partly or part of council resolution. Council receive and note the report. Receive and note that the report enacts. You can leave
The only problem is, Councillor Hancock, that the whole idea of that second point was to make that, to get that information bill before we decide on what we're doing in Surat, because it might affect other towns in the Maranoa, may not.
That's point 3.
So my thinking that, Mr Mayor, is when I originally brought this up, it was, for me, it was on feedback from the Surat community, wanting to have a look at it in their community. I absolutely understand that we need to be looking at the other. I'm just wondering if you'd consider this resolution that I'm putting up today, all we're saying is, take it out to see if the community, you know, if there's any feedback from the community about that making sure that they do support that, and also that we're only considering the project so that further work can be done with costings of that. But in the meantime, can we please have that other report back so that when we actually go to consider whether we're going to do this project or not, we've got all the information to make that decision, because we're not actually making that decision today. We're just making the decision that we would consider it once we have all the information.
Okay,
Just
well,
so that
we got a
move
few,
this project along.
yeah, we got a few questions. So Councillor Edwards, then Burkett, Councillor
Mine
O'Neill,
wasn't
did
a-
you?
Mine wasn't a question, I'm going to second it.
All right.
So you can
And
start
then-
the debate.
And then there was one maybe with Councillor Guthrie. So we're looking for questions.
Question. With respect, I'll second it because I want to amend something, and then there's further questions on what I may amend.
I had my finger up before,
Yeah,
sorry.
no, you were
Seconding it?
No,
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 'cause he
I'm
had a
asking a question.
question,
I've had
so-
my finger up for a long time.
Please go ahead, Councillor Edwards.
Yeah, as I said last time this was brought before council, I just wanted to clarify, because it is an important subject, and what we do here today might have some impact on what happens with all the other cemeteries as well. So I want it to be done properly. The thing that I noticed was, I'm still on about the word aesthetically. I don't think it really covers, you know, aesthetically means to look at. It doesn't actually talk about structural deficiencies and things like that. So my thoughts on it last time were, you know, possibly about that word, but also about just people being able to visit there and sit down and, you know, enjoy it aesthetically. But to be able to sit there, you need a seat. So there's no seats, and I can't, unless Director Matt can tell me, are there seats? I see a toilet there.
So
Are there seats available? I mean, there should be seats. I saw some woman the other day there sitting, you know, she was sitting on her haunches sort of thing. You know, there was nowhere to sit. So
Yeah.
that's just a basic thing.
Yeah, so Councillor Edwards, my plan was in the 24-25 budget to come up with a concept plan. So really flesh out what else we'd put in there. I was a suggestion of a bio toilet, as we were talking yesterday in briefings, and possibly other structures. So staged approach would be structures, storage rooms. We'd improve the signage,
So
fencing. There's a whole range of
So
things.
this motion today is basically just to look at cleaning up I know it's about the lawn cemetery, but it seems to have gone a little bit further than just fixing up the aesthetics of the place. You know?
Yeah, that's why I was more, put it in the project pipeline. I'd rather have it as a concept first and then go through the normal process of bringing it to, so if you wanted to go to community engagement, we could possibly do that.
Master plan
And just give us the time, and then we could then cost out those things as well. We did have costings on the bio toilet already that's going in at Wallumbilla already, so we know what that cost is. We estimate through the business case that just to put the lawn cemetery in and do some of those basic things, that $100,000 would probably do it for irrigation, for hydro mulching and that sort of thing. So, yeah.
Okay, Councillor Guthrie, do you have a question?
Well, it was not a question, no, I just wanted to make a comment.
Righto, well, let's do that in the debate. So, Councillor Burkett, did you have a question?
Mine just to get a clarification, because when Councillor McMullen said about that the opt-in Roma, you can only have the choice of if the lawn cemetery is there. But I think every cemetery must be different, because I'm pretty sure Wallumbilla you can get buried on top of each other. Whereas in Mitchell, that's side by side. So there obviously is differences in each cemetery. I think we need to know all that as well before we go further, because it's not apples for apples.
Okay, Councillor O'Neill, you wanted to
Yeah,
do
I'm going to second it. Just to tidy up point 2 though, if the mover's happy, council undertake community consultation on the upgrades to the Surat Lawn Cemetery, including seeking feedback on how to aesthetically and practically improve the cemetery, full stop. Improve the overall cemetery, which includes the proposed lawn and the cemetery.
Okay, so we have a move and a second. Does the mover wish to speak to the motion?
Or does he got to accept that?
Oh, does the mover wish, accept point 2? Councillor Hancock, are you there?
Oh, she's just ringing me. I think that, she's got some
Communications.
problems. Okay.
Mayor, do you adjourn?
Well, depends how long it's going to take.
She's there.
Councillor Hancock's back there now by the sound of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, great.
All right.
Oh, you're losing.
Sorry, I just dropped out for a second.
Okay, you're coming back now?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we're just losing a little bit of your voice.
Sounds great.
Oh, yep, so she's,
Mayor, probably adjourn.
for
Okay,
goodness sake. Come on.
okay.
Yeah, hi, Joe. Look, the comms is quite poor.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's okay.
yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah, you're clear again.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes,
Yeah.
we can.
Okay, sorry.
That's okay.
Sorry. Thank you, bye-bye.
Okay, yeah,
Yes.
we've got you. You can hear us?
Okay, I'm here. So I do accept that amendment.
Righto. Does the move wish to speak to the motion?
This could be.
I do.
Please go ahead.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, this has been a project supported by the Surat community for a long time. At every funeral I go to, I have community members coming and talking to me about the state of the whilst I acknowledge that we might have work to do in other cemeteries around the district, I don't think at the moment that affects this project moving forward to the next phase of considering the project at a future meeting. I just think the Surat community would like to see us move forward with the project and investigate all aspects, which we would be doing if we go to have your say today. Other communities in our region do already have a lawn cemetery for their loved ones to be buried in. So all I'm putting forward is that we consider giving the Surat community the same benefit and the same choice that other communities have in the region. I actually am excited to get some feedback from community regarding, I'm happy to say practical and aesthetic. The cemetery, there are 2 chairs there. Happy to put some more there, maybe further down in the plots. I think that a toilet has been raised I know that a toilet's been raised with me several times. So I do think that this is a great project for the Surat community. I'm not asking for this to be done tomorrow. I'm just asking that it be moved along so that we can consider it at a future quarterly review. And if it's not ready by a quarterly review, well let's put it to the next one. But let's just keep the project moving along, and that's all I'm asking with this resolution today. Because I think the Surat community do deserve to be able to have a choice when they're burying loved ones. And our communities our cemetery is looking very tired, and it does need some work done. And so I just ask that councils will support me with this resolution today to just move this project forward, but not committing any funds to the project as yet.
Okay, does someone else wish to speak for or against the motion? Councillor Guthrie?
Yeah, I'd just like to say I'm torn because when I read the officer's recommendation, I too would agree that people have the right to access choices when it comes to burial for loved ones. And I don't have a problem with looking to undertake community consultation and also the upgrading of the lawn cemetery. My concern is 2 things. One is I haven't got my head around the state of the other cemeteries and whether or not this is a level playing field. And even though it may have been raised in Surat, that's fine. I would hate to think that there are other locations in our Maranoa that would be going, well, how come we didn't get a look in? I would just like to have seen the information based on a greater understanding of the arrangements of our other lawn cemeteries. And I'm also thinking that bringing it into the quarterly review, it may be trying to move it too fast to get a true community consultation, true understanding, and get a really good decision made here. So I'm just going to sit and listen to other councillors' comments, but at the moment I'm just torn because, as I said, I do believe Waroo do deserve and should be looking at a lawn cemetery if that's what they're seeking. But I'd just like to get a balance across the whole region, as in circumstances.
Also, through the chair, just to help you with the motion and understand is how it sits, is your quarterly review, that the next quarterly review is actually 30th of September. Probably unlikely we'd consider it in quarter one. Yeah. Quarter two is the 31st of December. You would need to consider this issue really to be effective in your term on or before the 29th of January 24. Because essentially by the time you get to the third quarterly review, it'll be a new council. So just talking about the practicalities of being in that last term, about when do you really get to have a realistic consideration of this matter. Sure, you could certainly do that in the quarter two process, any time between November and before January the 29th. Just flagging that.
And just to finish my comment on, maybe in number 3, if it was upon receipt or upon reflection of the required report with regard to the arrangements, then to progress to the next quarterly review. So it's actually consequential to getting the report to then going, do we expend money based on the holistic picture? Because to me, it's about getting the whole Maranoa picture before thinking about financial contributions and then allocating money towards it. On an urgent basis.
Yeah, I'm a bit, sorry.
Councillor Edwards?
Yeah, after listening to Councillor Guthrie, that was, another thing I was going to mention was the fact, and someone might tell me differently, but we're not sort of enacting.
Well, I'm happy to amend.
Sorry, we're not enacting the last resolution technically because, if it's subject to, I'd be happy with that, subject to number 2 being done, but number 2 is not being done, so it makes it difficult to support it. Do you get what I mean? Like number 2 is not being supported.
Yeah.
So
I'm happy to move the amendment saying consider this project and any staging upon receipt of
a report.
Upon receipt of information required to fully enact resolution.
Yep.
I've got a question for the mover when you're ready. Councillor Hancock, like I have a difficulty supporting this because we haven't got the other lawn cemeteries information and where we don't and what will it do. Do you have any appetite to change it to take the focus off the Surat lawn cemetery and just include it as one of the consultation points? So, because obviously there's a need to aesthetically and practically improve the overall cemetery, you've got that in your motion. Is there an ability as well as an option of lawn cemetery, but we're not sort of going out and doing it on the consultation because it may not happen, and I'm concerned about, and hopefully it does, but what I'm saying is just stick to aesthetically and practically improve, and one of those things can be the lawn cemetery, but we go out about getting the improvement to the cemetery because then the point 2, whilst we'll get it, it's just general feedback about the Surat the Surat cemetery that needs doing. So do you have any appetite to take away the major focus from the lawn section and put it in as part of overall?
Mr. Mayor, I'd actually like to move that we lay this on the table to a future meeting to have all the information required to enact the whole resolution OM 08-2023-35.
Okay.
Because I think that's holding this up, and it's holding it up. And my intention was, I respect about the other cemeteries. This was actually, the focus was actually the Surat cemetery, and other projects go ahead in other communities, you know, standing alone. So I just want to lay it on the table until we have all the information so we can make a decision.
Okay. We'll go to the vote. All those in favour?
Yes.
9-0.
Thanks, Matt.
Thanks, Councillor.
13.2, proposal to purchase a Christmas tree, Roma. Councillor McMullen.
Mayor, I'd like to move that
Oh,
council...
well, Councillor McMullen, just wondering whether I have a conflict because
Oh.
where is the Christmas tree going to go?
in Roma.
Same place, same spot.
Same spot.
Right.
Nothing in the report to say that.
There's
though.
no location listed.
So,
It does say
It's up
McDowell
to-
Street, depends on how.
Other than McDowell Street, Roma.
Yeah.
Where we've put provisions for the last 7 years to have a Christmas tree. But we built that area for that tree.
Yep. So through the chair, the options are that you obviously can choose whether to stay in the chamber or not, or refer it to your fellow councillors for a decision.
yeah, righto. I might declare a conflict on this one. Sorry, CEO, for not advising you about it.
That's all right.
I'll declare a perceived conflict of interest. What's the other one called?
So a DCOI, a declared conflict of interest.
Prescribed or declarable.
Yep.
I'll do
So-
it declarable.
You can still prescribe or you can declare and still leave the chamber. That's your choice. Your prescribed interest is if you've got a direct association or a direct interest in the matter at hand. So that's a matter for you to decide whether you have a direct interest or not. The declarable conflict of interest is that the perception is that you could have a conflict of interest. You can still leave the chamber or refer it back to your fellow councillors for a decision.
That's the fright.
13.2, proposal to purchase a Christmas tree, Roma, declaring councillor Tyson Golder. Person with the interest is myself. And I'll call it a prescribed conflict of interest. Although I have a described conflict of interest, because we have a business in McDowell Street, I do not believe a reasonable person could have perception of bias. Therefore, I will choose to remain in the meeting. However, I will respect the decision of the meeting on whether I can remain and participate.
And
Can't do
just
that
for
on a
completeness,
prescribed.
yeah,
If you declare it prescribed, you have no
You have
option
to
but to
leave.
leave the room.
yes,
Sorry, declarable.
yes.
Yeah, declarable. I'll read that again.
Yes.
I have a business on the main street, McDowell Street. Although I have a declarable conflict of interest, I do not believe a reasonable person could have perception or bias. Therefore, I will choose to remain in the meeting. However, I will respect the decision of the meeting on whether I can remain and participate in the decision. Councillor Burkett.
I move that it's in the public interest that Councillor Golder participates and votes on the agenda item 13.2 because a reasonable person would trust that the decision is made in public interest.
Do we have a seconder?
Oh, sorry, mate.
Councillor Edwards.
No,
He probably
I
does.
was asking, sorry.
Are you asking
I
another
wasn't
question?
seconding.
I'll second it.
We have Councillor McMullen. Right, does anyone wish to speak to it? Then we'll go to the vote. All those in favour?
Yes.
8-0. Councillor McMullen.
Yeah, I'll move it, Mr Mayor.
Wait a minute, I think I should declare it.
Well, you can't.
You
just voted.
can't vote on.
You voted on it.
Sorry.
I didn't think he did, but he did.
He voted, he voted, yeah.
But on a Christmas tree.
No.
So,
I'll leave the room anyway.
okay. Did you want to go back and do the declaration and then re-vote, or?
Yeah, you can. If you're concerned about it, do that and leave the room. It's up to you.
Yeah, I will.
Yeah, it's your decision. So
That's why I thought when you didn't second it, I
through the
thought
chair,
you
are
were going to
withdrawing your vote?
declare.
Say again?
Are you?
Yes.
Yeah. You're fine with that. So that, do you want to take the vote again?
Yeah, we'll do the vote again. All those in favour?
6-0.
Councillor,
Hamper, oh yeah.
yeah.
That's what, I was putting my finger up to,
7-0.
I was putting my finger up my goal to say that I had a conflict,
Oh, right, okay.
not to second the motion.
Right, okay. Yeah, no problem. So do you want to declare anything?
Yeah, sorry, I'll do a declarable interest, and I'll also, contrary to that, I'll just read the, I'll read the thing out first, whatever that was.
So through the chair, you have the option here to either.
Yeah, I'll do a declarable.
Yes,
Sorry,
fine.
yeah,
Just, it's on the thing there, mate. Councillor.
yeah, I've just got to come up with a few other words. Myself and Leichhardt Group, it would be. LEI, yep, you're right on that one, Cal, yep. Particulars of interest are, I'm a partner in Leichhardt Group, and we have a lease, and Leichhardt Group has a lease on a property at 63 McDowell Street, Roma. I'll actually yeah, have a declarable conflict, and actually I'll might do the same. I'll remain in the room. Action to remain. So although, yeah, just the last one there, Cal, action will be to remain.
You have to read it
You
out.
got to read it out though.
Yeah, yeah, no, it's all right. I just wanted to make sure it was right. Okay. What item is it?
Just say, yeah, the type of conflict.
13 to-
Spiel
Yeah,
from
can
there.
you just, just have to go up first,
Or 4.
so I can see the top of it.
Have you read some of it? Have you read some of it?
No,
or-
no, no.
Oh, you want to read the whole lot?
No, all I'm doing is checking,
You're at the type of conflict stage. And
no,
then-
no, yeah, I know where I am. So I'd like to declare a conflict of interest, item 13.2, description proposal to purchase a Christmas tree Roma, declaring Councillor Mark Edwards, person with the interest, related party, close associate, other relationship is myself and Leichhardt Group. Particulars of interest, I'm a partner in Leichhardt Group, and we have I'm a partner in Leichhardt Group, which has a lease on a property at 63 McDowell Street, Roma. Type of conflict is declarable conflict of interest, and the action is, although I have a declarable conflict of interest, I do not believe a reasonable person could have a perception of bias. Therefore, I will choose to remain in the meeting. However, I will respect the decision of the meeting on whether I can remain and participate in the decision.
Councillor McMullen.
Yeah, I'll move that it is in the public interest that Councillor Edwards participates and votes on agenda item 13.2 because a reasonable person would trust that the decision is made in the public interest.
Do we have a seconder? Councillor Ladbrook. Anyone wish to speak? We'll go to the vote. All those in favour?
Yeah.
7-0. Councillor McMullen.
Well, you're going to leave the room, aren't you?
No.
Oh, no, sorry.
Yep.
I'm used to realising. Oh, confused. I'd like to move that council one approve the cost of a new Christmas tree and decorations for Roma to the value of $38,000 to allocate funds from W.O. 23388.
Can I ask a question? What quality, it's obviously a lot of money, what quality is the tree or the electronics, or have we got any history, or have we bought things off them, or have we...
Thank you, Mr Mayor. There's no history recorded, but I've been here 10 years and that tree has stood up for 10 years. So they're fairly stable trees and of good quality. Most of the damage that's come to that Christmas tree is through vandalism, not through the tree itself and the longevity of that tree.
But what I mean is this the same mob that we bought the last tree off?
Correct, Mr Mayor.
So you've got some history.
Yeah.
Yeah. And this one's lit, is it? Was the last one lit? Christmas tree?
Yes, it was.
It was.
There's been a slight upgrade over the years to the lighting systems, and these trees are all LED now, where before they originally were bulbs. But
Who was first out of Councillor Taylor or Ladbroke? Then Councillor
Yeah,
Taylor.
I was just a bit concerned about the price, you know, like 40 grand is a lot of money for a tree. Have we tried other companies or whatever? It's just a lot of money for a Christmas tree.
Yep.
You can nearly buy a car for that.
You want to put a pine one up there?
And, you know, because I know everything's gone up, but last time we spent 4,670, this time it's nearly 40 grand.
It was a second-hand tree. The last tree
Was it?
wasn't brand new.
What, this tree that we've got now?
Current tree that goes up was second-hand.
Okay.
Councillor Taylor, do you
Thank
have
you.
a question?
Cameron?
I do.
Please go ahead.
My first question is, why does it come out of Bassett Park's budget?
Yeah, through you, Mr Mayor, Councillor Taylor. It's the project that was funded through that one. The Bassett Park Grandstand box cutter and roller doors is going to come out of the $2 million Bassett Park budget. So this money is just left over from that.
So essentially
The work order.
savings.
Yeah,
Savings
that's right.
from another project, yeah.
And my second question is, what are you going to do with the old tree?
Through you, Mr Mayor,
You can't say what you want to say.
we might look at gifting it to another town potentially, or looking at saving it. We'll, maybe.
Yeah, you can repurpose it somewhere else in the
Yeah.
Maranoa.
Yeah. Not to say that it's not fit for other towns though. We'll see what we can do with it.
Yeah, but it could be somebody, it could be
An organisation. Yeah.
doing Christmas
That's
or
right.
something.
Yeah. The intention is not just to throw it out, but to see where else we can put it.
Thank you, Georgie.
Councillor O'Neill?
I have a question.
Yep, and then, yeah.
Is the is it beyond repair? Oh, sorry. Is it at the point where we have to change it? I know there's been issues for the vandalism, and we've taken bits out, and it's a shorter tree because of those idiots that decided to climb it at 2 a.m, which we haven't had since we put the fence up.
There must be too intoxicated to climb
Yeah.
the fence.
Well, they can't run and jump at it as they had in the past. But if we're going to gift it to another community, it was a second-hand tree. Is it at the point where we could get away with this year with the current tree?
There certainly is an option, Councillor O'Neill, but we've actually been trying to upgrade that tree for numerous years now, and each time we've been unsuccessful. And each year it deteriorates further and further and further. And I think there is a point where, in a small community, that it would be of benefit to them, but in a town the size of Roma, and some of the damage that has been done to it, we need a more stable tree and a stronger tree. So, that's my thoughts.
I'm happy to second it with an amendment.
Yeah, well, we've got another question. Councillor Hancock?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just wondering, is there anyone local that we could go through that to give an opportunity to source a Christmas tree, rather than just going out of town first? And I do know that it's a specialised product, but I just wonder if we've actually thought about giving an opportunity to a business locally to source a Christmas tree.
Through you, Mr Mayor, Councillor Hancock, we did look at other suppliers. I don't believe they were local ones either, but we could have a look at if there is any local companies that might be able to supply a Christmas tree. I think with the other suppliers that we did get quotes from, there was a considerable difference in the quality and that's why we opted for the commercial Christmas services, because one, we'd had the current trees through them, and we just knew it would be a higher quality than the other two that we received quotes from.
Okay, Councillor O'Neill.
I'm happy to second it if the mover will consider point 3 and a report be presented at an upcoming council meeting with options to repurpose the existing Roma Christmas tree into one of our other towns across the Maranoa.
Councillor O'Neill, can I just ask a question? That's not preventing going through with this one? The only reason I'm asking was, just for ordering sakes. Yep. Okay.
I agree, because all you're saying is,
Yep.
see what we do with the old one, or a report to see what we're going to do with the old one.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yep.
No, I'm happy with that.
So I've got a question. Is it a better Christmas tree than what we've got? Stronger, or is it an improvement? Is it things that you can see, because you're involved, I think, with the one every year. Is it your gut feeling, is it an improvement? It's obviously new, but are they better, or?
I think technology has changed over the years, and you're getting a stronger material now when it comes to the steel frame in higher quality. So there will be certainly improvements to the construction or how the tree is constructed. Again, it's unforeseen with vandalism. You never know what's going to happen, but you can only take so much strain on a tree. But I believe that the upgraded model will be much more suitable for it.
And is this supplier one that supplies to councils and obviously private businesses, but is it like the quality end of the Christmas tree sort of supply market, do you find?
Correct, Mr Mayor. So over the years we've been investigating the trees and where we purchased them from, and the background for this company that supplies them is pretty much Queensland wide. So
Right. And that current tree, as I said, it was second hand. It was up for sale through this company because another council had upgraded its tree.
Yeah.
And that's how we ended up with that second hand.
Okay. Right, does the mover wish to speak to the motion?
Yeah, Mr Mayor, thanks. I think it's timely to purchase a new Christmas tree. As has already been alluded to, council purchased this one second hand in 2013, so it could be, that's 10 years, so it could be 20-year-old, not knowing the history of it prior to council purchasing it. So if we get 10 or 20 years out of this one, I think, I won't see it, but it should be good.
Does anyone wish to speak against the motion or for the motion? Councillor O'Neill.
I'll speak for it, and it's a similar vein to what the Deputy Mayor has just expressed. If you look at the return on investment from the second-hand tree, not a bad return. Yes, this is a little bit more expensive than what we outlaid in 2013, but it's a brand new tree. I'm hoping, Jeff, it's 25 years plus that we might get out of a tree like this, and we've learned some lessons. We have now got some, security around it. There's cameras down there, etc., to try and stop, what has happened in the past in vandalising the tree. So I'm happy to support this, and I think it'll be an extra boost to the Maranoa Christmas street party that'll be held later in the year.
Does anyone else wish to speak? Does the mover wish to sum up?
No, thanks, Mr Mayor.
We'll go to the vote. All those in favour? 9-0. Thanks, you.
Page 78.
14.1, Grazing Agreement, Police Paddock, Dargal Road. Councillor Burkett.
I'd like to move that Council 1 enter into an agreement with Michelle Thompson for the grazing rights for Paddock 7 on Dargal Road, Roma. 2, enter into an agreement with Brodie Hurley for the grazing rights for Paddock 2 on Dargal Road, Roma. 3, enter into an agreement with Sean Ahern for the grazing rights for Paddock 5 on Dargal Road, Roma. 4, enter into an agreement with Mark Thompson for the grazing rights for Paddock 4 on Dargal Road, Roma. 5, enter into an agreement with Angus Mitchell for the grazing rights for Paddock 6 on Dargal Road, Roma. 6, enter into an agreement with Misty Emery for the grazing rights for Paddock 8 on Dargal Road, Roma. And 7, delegate authority to the Chief Executive Officer to enter into final negotiations with each successful applicant to execute the respective agreements with the term of licence to be for 2 years at a cost of $250 each quarter.
We have a second, Councillor Ladbroke. And Councillor Guthrie, do you have a
I just have
question?
a question. I note on page 79, they've actually listed the different paddocks that we've got, and where this suggestion here is to go out with 6 responses. I'm just querying paddock 9. It hasn't gone out. I'm just wondering, we don't actually have an existing motion to actually have it subdivided. Just wondering why it wouldn't go out for maybe a shorter period of time, rather than just have the land sit there.
I understand that is literally when the officers, went out in relation to the leases and the agreements, what they were trying to do is preserve those spaces for council's intention. One of those is an access block, which needs to be kept vacant. And yes, the paddock 9 was to say that if council should move on a subdivision at that end, that there's no interference in relation to that. Certainly council could look at a short-term option, less than what the other agreements are, if we think that council won't be interested in making a decision in relation to that in the next year or so.
Councillor McMullen.
Mr Mayor, my question is, what will happen to the current occupants?
Through the chair.
To which one? The 75?
one?
The number
Big
9?
paddock.
No, it's currently vacant.
Sorry,
It's,
it's being grazed. I come past it every day. Someone set up camp there.
Maybe
Not camp, but
not officially.
well, that's why I didn't know whether it's official or not. I didn't ask it. There's a little bit of a few sets of panels and a couple of horses or whatever.
okay, we'll have to look
And I'm
into
not-
that. There's no agreement.
But
to
I
graze.
assumed the other one expired because it was, I think, a 2 or 3 year long-term on that block. Yeah.
Yes,
And
that's
what paddock number was that again?
The big one, paddock 9.
Yeah.
Councillor Burkett, then O'Neill.
Yeah, I think we probably couldn't, I think it'd be unfair if we put that out separately without these guys that, like all those people that I just read out, might have been interested in that. If we go out again, it's not going to look good on us. Is that 75 hectares, is that including the bit that I wanted, I put a thing in?
Yeah, it's all.
That off
Yeah,
Richardson's Lane? Yeah, I'm happy to leave as is, I think, to be honest, but.
Okay, Councillor O'Neill.
My question is on paddock 9 as well. It's 75 hectares. Why, and we're not about to develop 75 hectares. Why wouldn't we look at subdividing some of that off? Fencing some of it off into a few smaller paddocks, because we're about to go into a very dry period if reports are correct. The talk is a bad fire season, far better to have some animals in there grazing some of the grass down. So my question is, if it's currently vacant, in inverted commas, do we look at some additional paddocks? Because I know that there is a new pilot coming to town who is leaving horses in New South Wales because they can't find any places in Roma. Well, if we've got 75 hectares and we're not going to develop it, I suspect in this term of council, or subdivide it, then maybe a report come back to have a look at what options are on that 75.
And the costs associated with
Yeah, of course, yeah.
But
But just,
we could, that would probably resolve, Councillor Guthrie's
but with that,
comment as well.
getting back to it, I suppose these guys have still got the chance to put in another solution for those.
Well,
I'm just worried that,
you
like,
might
if we
have-
turn around straight away and go, when all these guys would have preferred that part of the paddock for different reasons, and then it's like not a kick in the guts, but
But through the chair, you could ask for a report to come back to say, what are the options? It's a large piece of land, and you might look at temporary adjustment, temporary fire control, a different arrangement for all of those paddocks, because it's such a large lot.
Depends where the water would be for that one.
Well, we have to look at all the costings to do that, yeah.
You know, like
Has
to cut it
water
up,
in
it
but
might be
only
a,
has one
Solve the
point.
issue
it'd only be one point
doing
where,
something more with that paddock is at least finding an interim arrangement.
Yeah, Councillor Burkett, the other thing is if we do that, we hold this up. So if we keep this going and then they all get a chop at the next
yeah,
thing,
well, that long as it, I just hate to be like I said, all these guys would prefer a bigger paddock, no doubt. And if they,
So do we not complicate 14.1? It is what you've moved, and then we have a subsequent resolution immediately after, which is not attached to this. It is to investigate.
yeah,
Councillor Edwards?
Yeah, just had a question, a bit out of left field, but maybe I wasn't here, but when was it subdivided?
It's
Just
not-
through the chair, it's not, there were, certainly council did discuss the potential to explore lifestyle blocks at that end of the subdivision. And certainly in those discussions, when the staff were putting together the agreements and going out for expressions of interest, they would have taken that into account. So hence, rather than offer something that could get in the way of council's own interests, we've kept it out. So the reality is it's not subdivided, but you've got a large acreage there where you could, again, as the commentary in the room is, potentially move another motion that might explore further options.
Sorry, I'm talking about
No,
the whole
it's
block,
nothing,
not
nothing
the 75
subdivided.
hectares.
It's not subdivided
No.
anyway. It's not,
No, that's what I'm
nothing's
wondering.
No, that's right,
subdivided.
it's
full
just
stop.
fenced off.
Probably the
It's
wrong
fenced
word again.
Yeah, fenced into individual
Fenced
paddocks.
is better.
Yes,
Yeah,
that's right.
yeah.
Yeah, exactly,
I
councillor.
think we actually did that last
Last term,
term.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
It's,
So it's not subdivided.
No, it's
Yes,
not.
that's
no.
right.
But there was talk of it, and that's why this
Yes.
block's been left.
Sure, okay.
Okay, so
Mr Mayor,
Councillor McMahon.
well, I was going to, it's sort of been answered now, but the subdivision Councillor Burkett's talking about is nothing, is a future one. There is no subdivision at all, but we have talked about and probably agree to it, not in principle, to look at subdividing some of that land, but nothing it's one paddock at the moment, one
Yes.
paddock, full stop.
Thought I might have missed something there
Yeah.
somewhere. Yeah.
Okay, so
I'm happy to speak to it, Mr Mayor.
please go ahead.
I think this is great. I know we've done doing it in other areas as well, and we've been pushing for it for most towns. But I think this is great for individuals in town that haven't got anywhere to put their horses, and all these guys here have got sporting interests or whatever. But it goes to livability, and I think it's a great asset for us to have this up our sleeve for people in the district.
Do we have anyone else wish to speak to it? I'll speak to it. Yeah, no, I do agree. I think it's pushing your strengths and moving to the country. You can have horses or ponies. It's one of the part of the country. So being able to not have to spend $1 million to get this is a great option. And I think the more livability, the more we'll be doing this. So I'll certainly be supporting this, and I'm very glad that council is looking at it in different areas, and the more we do of this, the better I think it will be as a benefit to residents of the Maranoa. Does anyone else wish to speak? Does the mover wish to sum up?
Oh, just to say thanks to staff to not only doing this in Roma, but looking at it in other areas too, because it's ticking the boxes that we need.
Okay, we'll go to the vote. All those in favour?
Yes.
9-0. Councillor O'Neill.
I'll move that council investigate options for potential subdivision. No, potential.
Yeah, well.
Horse paddocks.
Subdivision / fencing of paddock 9 for the purpose of grazing.
Okay, we have a second, Councillor Guthrie.
I'm
Or
happy to
do we?
second, but would you be open to having a time frame as in for a shorter, like 12 month? Because I'd hate to think it went out and then the next council would be hampered by the fact that they can't subdivide it. I mean, we're very, very aware of housing.
Or 6 months with the option.
Or shorter time frame, so you're not tying in, just so that we're really trying to look at available land, do something with it for a whole range of reasons, without then tying in.
So for the purpose of grazing, including options,
The timeframe options.
okay, including options for different timeframes.
Councillor O'Neill, with that, is it two things? A, if we did want to have a few acreage blocks, do you put that in and say, let's nut that out and start the process, because power's probably 2 years away? Or do you just take out subdivision and leave it as fencing of paddocks, because we're not actually doing any subdivision unless we want to do a subdivision? So, do you know what I mean? It's just fencing of one big paddock, which we've done. The rest of it, we just want to do more.
Not that I want to put a third resolution in, but going back to my point that I've been banging on, and I think, and all of the stuff's on the Richardson Lane side, power, water is pretty close there. Can we get that, it's only squared off, get that separate to this? Is there any chance we can do that? So, because that way, that's
through
the
chair, I
most
think,
logical spot for all the, what do you call it?
Mayor, can I
So through the chair, it was
Can I,
originally 16
move-
hectares.
that we lay this one on the table to a briefing, because I was going to speak what Councillor Burkett just said. Before we start throwing fences up in this other particular paddock, have a look, because that particular block Councillor Burkett's referring to, there is a subdivision in the corner, so you would tidy that up across that line, and
And then that way,
possibly could be 2, 3 or 4 smaller blocks in that area.
I don't think you can lay a matter on the table that isn't a report. This is my resolution that I'm coming up with off the cuff. So let's get it right today. I wanted to come back to a briefing. I wanted to come back to a future council meeting. We're making no decisions.
Need a map to be able to explain it.
The council investigate options for short, medium and long-term use of Paddock 9, including potential subdivisions for
Future housing?
future housing.
That's right.
Should we have in there?
And fencing for stock use, for grazing of stock.
So this is all.
Cameron, should we
come
have
back
in
to-
there like a costing for water?
All of
Come
that
back
will
to the
come back.
briefing.
Let's keep
Let's
it
have it. Let's
wide
come
so
back to
that the
briefing.
staff have this much to go and do, rather than us being so specific. But absolutely, costings would have to come back.
and through you, Chair, CEO, I've sent a thing to the CEO previously on that section, so that's available to you.
So, Councillor O'Neill,
Just, Mayor, can we just get this right first, and then we can amend it. The council investigate options for short, medium and long-term use, not timeframes.
That keeps it pretty broad.
The council investigate options for short, medium, long-term use of Paddock 9, including for subdivided acreage / housing.
Yep.
And grazing purposes. And all associated costs be provided in a report at an upcoming briefing of council.
yeah, no, you got acreage in there now, so just wanted to really define, so they didn't go away and do quarter acres and then, because, you know, to me, we want to keep it on the smaller side of the blocks.
Well, we want to
for
go
acreage blocks.
go to the stage where we don't have to subdivide and put sewerage in,
That's what's
whatever that level is.
You're going to need that. Yeah, but anyway, we'll go to the briefing on that.
Yeah.
That'll be good.
Righto, do we have Councillor Guthrie, are you happy with that?
Happy with that.
Righto, we'll go to the vote.
I want to speak.
Please go ahead.
Thanks very much, Chair. This resolution goes to the core as to why Council made the decision nearly a decade ago to purchase the police paddock at quite a considerable expense to future-proof the Roma community in growing, as our plans illustrate, to the west. Whilst I support in the short term that we should be using it for grazing purpose to add to the livability of residents, and I certainly support that even more given the current climate and the dry period that we may be headed towards, and keeping the grass as to a manageable level. At the end of the day, we should be looking at ways to bring people out to our community. And that isn't just people that want to live in a 1,000 square metre block in town. It is acreage that will attract people to living in a rural community like ours. So whilst in the short term I think we should be grazing, but in the long term we should be subdividing, and this will kick it along. And I know Councillor Burkett has been championing this in the background and through council meetings in the past, and I look forward to something coming back at a briefing. I'm just going to, an upcoming briefing, before the end of the year.
Does anyone else wish to speak to the motion?
You might just, I want to check with the seconder that I've just added before the end of year.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Councillor Guthrie's happy with that.
Financial,
has covered it pretty well.
Yeah.
financial or calendar, or financial or what year?
Mr Mayor,
Calendar year.
can I make a suggestion of amendment to Councillor O'Neill?
Please go ahead.
I would, in my opinion, we need to, before the end of the year, because if we're going to make a decision, we need to make a decision before the end of the year, not, you know what I mean? Because
The calendar year, that's right.
There's nothing in January, and then we go into caretaker mode, basically no meetings in January.
That's right. I think the intention is to keep it within the term.
Upcoming briefing, provided in a report at the first briefing in November of 2023.
Okay, I'll speak to the motion. Certainly support this. I did, whilst I wasn't on council, the feedback I got in general was council had the opportunity to buy the land to do with the levy and flood issues that people may have needed land. I think that is why, you know, the feedback is why that council was offered the land or had an opportunity to buy. But I think it is good land from an acreage point of view. We know that it's a very strong sector is small acreage blocks. But the side benefit of just doing paddocks up, that people can get people that live in town can actually have a horse block is a wonderful thing. There's a lot of health benefits of being with horses, and to be able to provide that. Some towns in Queensland have town commons where they can have horses and so forth. We don't have that, but this council has been opening up and considering more horse paddocks, and they're great for people that just have a standard block in town, which I don't believe they're allowed to have a horse. So I think this is a great initiative for residents of the Maranoa. So I'll certainly be supporting this motion.
Can I just ask a question, Mr Mayor? Obviously I added November and I saw the scared look on the CEO's face and the director's face. I don't want a briefing if it's not enough time to get the right information, the bulk information back for us to consider. If I was to amend that further to say in a report at a briefing in November, that gives options until the end of November, which is 6 weeks, which is better than 4 weeks. But I take the point that we have to consider it this year.
Yep.
So I'll amend that to say a briefing in November 2023, because there's no point in us looking at something that doesn't have the detail.
I
Yep.
think before
Look, we'd certainly
before the staff
appreciate
can
that.
do anything, we need to talk about it at a briefing, to what direction we want to give them, whether we want all small rural res or whatever. Because I would hate to think we're going to start putting 2,000 or 1,000 metre blocks out, and we're trying to get someone to take on a subdivision in town. That's only my thoughts, but yeah.
I think the
Look,
size.
look, pragmatically, council officers are already writing reports for the 11th of October. That's why we go, oh, is because essentially coming out of this meeting, we're actually looking at the end of October. So by giving us another couple of briefings, that does give us a bit more time.
But to Councillor McMullen's point, that's nothing stopping us having
That's right.
a non-detailed briefing
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
you get the appetite of the people in the room.
It's
Yeah.
just
I
the
think
costing
my only
piece,
concern through the chair was just the timing around, particularly around pricing and costings around acreage.
Yeah, well,
We can certainly look at the dividing the paddocks up
Design.
for grazing purposes. I think that's a lot easier, but the other side might just take a little bit of time, that's all. We're just going through an exercise with the Clearview Estate side. I appreciate that's a little bit more detailed than this one, but it does take a bit of time just to get all that together, that's all.
But, through you, Chair, the section I'm talking about, but that's, so we want to just make sure that that part is not included in the separation for the grazing. You'll see it when you look at the map square.
And through the chair, if you recall, what we were looking at is about just under 17 hectares for subdivision, and there'd be a balance. So that would certainly give you 50 to 60 hectares to
Like I
play
said,
with for grazing.
I believe we should be doing anything about subdividing house blocks out there at this point in time.
Yeah,
But
but
it's got
through the chair,
acreage
you
in
can.
there.
I know, I
you can
realise
put the
that, but-
planning in place to, earmark council's interests, so.
And just remember, we've got, depending on an overall plan, we've got 2 years before these people, they've got those paddocks, and I mean, until you get someone to look at it, you've got to work out where your roads are going to be, because there'll be internal roads in there.
Sure.
So,
Yeah, that's why that
yeah,
section
I
I'm talking
understand
about
your section.
is
your-
easy fix because it's off one road.
Yeah.
If we don't start something,
That's right.
We'll be.
I think, in light of what Director Leo said, I understand, take all the costings out of it and just a briefing on a general outlay. I know that's the right word, but
And look, through the
we can have
chair,
a look.
roughly speaking, I think we're getting, your intention is, and based on previous discussions, we're looking at, say, of the 75 hectares, you're looking at, earmarking 20 away for future development and essentially 55 hectares, which is a lot of land for grazing. And I don't think that's complicated.
No.
But I take on board your comments, Councillor McMullen, around the fine detail, around the 15 to 20 hectares you want to keep aside. But I think we can do that quite simply. And if council doesn't want a great level of detail on that, that will help speed up our process too.
Also, Director, what you wouldn't know because you weren't here at the time, but Deputy Director's done a fair bit of work on this.
Yeah.
And we've had a briefing before about the acreage part of it, the small acreage part. So you may wish to catch up with the Deputy Director, and we talked about costs of infrastructure. So he had some ballpark figures.
Thank you.
So he does know about that. Councillor Guthrie?
Yeah, just to make sure that this is really, really tight, I'm just wondering, and maybe this is to Councillor O'Neill, rather than associated costs, whether it be indicative costs, because that way there, you're not then tied, I'm trying to free up that specific costings. It's really about what sort of money are we looking at, so indicative costing rather than associated costs.
Just delete it altogether and costs be provided in a report at a briefing.
Okay, have we got enough detail there, councillors?
Yep.
Let's go to the vote.
we're still,
Does anyone else wish to speak to this motion?
we don't want them to be trying to do costing for November meeting, briefing,
Why?
because they said that's what's going to give them the big
That's
pain
why I
in the
said
gut.
the word.
That
But,
when I
through the
said the
chair-
first briefing, I'm saying now a briefing in
Yep,
November,
so-
that has given it 6
But how
weeks.
can they do costings when we haven't suggested what we want?
I suspect, given that the flavour has been expressed here in the room, that we will have a briefing before this comes back in its entirety.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's fine, I'm happy with that, but that's not what the regular,
Because we've got a 3-week gap.
Councillor McMullen, we have had a briefing on it before, and we did talk about a lot of this to do with what you were talking about.
I understand this, but in my opinion, my thoughts, what we should be diverting from that a bit now, as I've said, and get away from house blocks. Leave
Oh,
the
no, they were acreage blocks, the ones
a
we...
handful in one end,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
we got the opportunity with that whole, in my opinion, that whole 75 hectares, or big percentage of it, we can do more small acreage along the Dargal roadside.
I agree.
And that's what I mean.
Let's get to that in the briefing, and I reckon if councillors don't see it on the agenda at the next briefing, there'll be 9 of us asking, where is it? So,
Pressure's on.
yeah.
Okay, now, is the seconder happy with those changes?
Yes.
Right, now, who else would like to speak?
Just a spelling there, acreage, yeah, that's right.
Okay.
Aren't you the class nerd?
Now, does anyone else wish to speak?
No.
I think we've
Does the move wish to sum up?
I do, and I think for those that watch the proceedings of our meetings will see that there is a real passion and commitment to addressing the housing issue that we have in our community, and this is one way that we can do it. I just want to ensure that the facts are right, and Mayor, you're wrong. The driving factor to do the deal with the state government on the police paddock was separate to the works that were happening around the flood mitigation. We were popping at the seams in 2013 and 14. We all remember the boom. We had very little housing stock as we're experiencing now. And the reason our community wasn't overdeveloped as some of our cousins in the east was because we were landlocked to the west. We didn't have ample land to develop, and that's why council worked with the state government to purchase the police paddock for future development, future housing development in Roma. And with that, I urge you all to support the recommendation.
Okay, we're going to go to the vote. All those in favour?
Yes.
9-0.
Thanks, guys. Good luck.
Thank you.
14.2, Roma Touch Association User Agreement. Councillor Ladbroke.
Yeah, I'd like to move that council agree with a request from the Roma Touch Football Association Incorporated to extend their user agreement for a further 5 years for the use of Roma Touch fields, clubhouse amenities, lights and shower, toilet block, in accordance with Schedule 1 of their agreement. And number 2, charge no higher fee for the use of the Roma Touch fields and building for the term of the agreement. And 3, consider a future report outline the club's request for additional support from council to maintain and fertilise the sporting ovals.
We have a seconder. Councillor Burkett, any opposition?
A question?
Please go ahead.
Have they ever been charged a higher fee?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. No, they.
No. It just says charge no higher fee, so we never have.
No.
Thank you.
Okay, does anyone wish to speak to the motion? Then we're going to go to the vote. All those in favour?
Yes.
9-0.
I have a conflict here, Mr. Mayor.
Be fun.
I have a conflict.
14.3, Roma District Tennis Club Incorporated. Councillor Ladbroke.
I have a conflict on 14.3, the description Roma and District Tennis Club Incorporated, declaring councillor as myself, Councillor Ladbroke. The person of interest is my wife, Alana Ladbroke. Particulars of interest, my wife is president of the Roma Show Society and they are mentioned in the report. The type of conflict, declarable conflict of interest, and the action I'll take is leave the room while the matter is being discussed and voted on.
Okay, any other conflicts?
No, I'm happy to move it, Mr. Mayor.
Please, well, Councillor Ladbroke, you're free to leave. I've got a question. So the motion as it is, that does not include that pink box to do with the...
That's been knocked on the head.
The pink box is not in this 5. Lot 5. Just want to double check.
Page 101.
So the pink box is that one. Yep. No, it's
It
not.
doesn't. Thank you. Councillor Burkett.
I'm going to move we lay this on the table until later in the meeting.
Righto.
And the reason why is that on page 102 in the feedback from the Roma Show Society executive, it makes reference to they're unable to support the additional space as it is not within their long-term plans of the Roma Show Society. I'd like council to receive what the long-term plans of the Roma Show Society are for that site.
Through the chair,
Well,
what
we've
might
got
assist with that is how long is the current user agreement for the Show Society on that site? Because I think it's 5 years too, isn't it?
It's 2 years. It expires in May 2025.
Okay.
And it's a user agreement.
So you want to lay it on the table?
Just till later in the meeting to
later in
get
the meeting.
that information.
I know we can lay it on the table, I agree. Just clarification, someone just raised about the piece, the block in pink. Was that originally going to be included, was it?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I don't think their intention, the tennis association has just asked that for a proposed for the future if they did want to expand there. I think the intention initially for the squash courts that they're going to apply for is the ones just outside where their existing clubhouse is. But they then asked for future expansion, the ones near the Roma Show buildings.
Okay, all those in favour of laying on the table to later in the meeting?
Yes.
8-0.
Can I just, what are the chances of getting that back now that I've said later in the meeting?
You can give the president or the secretary a call and see just unofficially what they thought they were intending on doing with the site, like, not in writing, but if we can find out roughly what they're planning on doing.
Refer to? Which?
The president or the secretary?
Of what?
The Roma Show Society.
Okay.
Yeah, I think they just wanted to, that's their show society land and that.
And I think it's
That's
just,
why the piece in pink, if that's excluded from the tennis club, I think we don't have a problem. Excluded. The tennis club are looking at that one, that down the track.
What do you mean, who are we going to have a problem with?
The show
Well,
society.
it's going to.
Yeah, that's what we're
No,
going to
that's what
find out.
they've asked the tennis club about, and the show has come back and said, no,
Yeah.
that doesn't fit with our long-term plans. We need to understand what their long-term plans are so that we are
yeah,
considering that when we're making this decision on the tennis club.
But what my understanding is
with
the
the
piece in
works that they're
pink,
doing now at the
tennis
buildings.
club want to earmark that for them.
I know.
Is that, am I right?
Yeah,
That's
Right,
one-
and the show has said no,
Yeah.
and we need to understand why.
I've just got to have a break.
Yeah. Yeah, please go ahead.
Also with that information that comes back with that user agreement, I'd just like to know whether the show society has a user agreement just over the building or whether it is the land and building, please.
Must be land and building.
Sure.
Let's
Just
find out.
importantly for council, the report you've got in front of you today is only talking about their existing pattern of use. It's not about the future, any future anticipated court.
Yeah, so I think they just asked about future expansion, not doing it, so. Okay, moving on, 7. Yes, please.
So just for an answer to Councillor
hang on.
Hancock. So the agreement's only just for the buildings, is that correct?
Yeah, so both the Girl Guides huts.
Not the land.
Not the,
Yeah, that's what I thought, that it was just over the building, not the land. So, but I agree, this isn't the decision in the report today. The decision in the report is about the squash court land.
But in the report on page 101, it clearly says the Roma and District Tennis Club Incorporated initially also wanted the additional area marked in a pink on the map for the purpose of future expansion of the club. So it does form part of the report.
Yeah, it does, but I don't think it was their burning issue.
But the feedback has come back from the Show Society, no.
No.
And our staff have then generated a recommendation based on that information.
They would have no land in front of their building if we did that, so that would be.
Yeah, well, that's what we.
Yeah, so we just need to understand
Yeah,
that.
exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
It will be,
Okay.
it will be helpful in terms of the Roma Tennis grant application for the mining infrastructure program, I guess, if they can say or cannot say that they're going to utilise that proposed area as well.
Yeah.
So probably.
And they're already taking a bit of our road, taking car
Yeah, and
park.
that's the other thing that's in there is the road, so
Yeah.
we've got to balance it up for everyone, so.
And I've got a further bit of question to come back
on that page 101, it says, if the lease was for a period of more than 10 years, it would be necessary for council to undertake a subdivision. I understand why it's less than 10 years, because their overall lease expires in 10 years. But they had an initial 30-year lease, and so should we not have a look at and understand what the process would be to subdivide the area which would have the squash courts on it? Because in 2033, we're not going to, I imagine that council of the day isn't going to go, here's your lease for the next 30 years on the tennis courts, because we're not subdividing off the squash courts.
That lease is not council in 33. That's a state lease. My understanding.
Between the state.
Yeah, okay.
It's a reserve.
They've got a lease for the state, but now they want a lease for a bit extra of our land.
Which is the Girl Guide land.
No, but even in the other area.
Yeah, well, my point's still the same.
Yeah.
Do we look at subdividing that off so it becomes that entire leased area, rather than the complication of here's the squash courts on a different tenure than the rest of it? Because they're all going to be together.
But how can we take it off and put it on a state lease, or just have?
Well, if the lease was for a period of more than 10 years, it would be necessary for council to undertake a subdivision. I'm just asking, can we get some information on what that process is, and is it a value to subdivide it off? Because the tennis court, if they've had a 30-year lease over the tennis courts, you would expect that they would then look for another 30-year lease in 2033.
Yeah, I think the...
Anyway, if we could find that out,
Yes.
just what the difference is, where they could be connected up maybe, so that they all fall due at the same time or whatever.
And they're a community group, right? We want to...
We'll talk about it later then.
Okay.
You want the butcher back? Smoke
We'll break and back in half an hour.
Okay, we'll resume the meeting at, what's the official time, Kel? 11:08. The mayor's just absent for a short time. So,
Chair, I'll move that we go on to, change the agenda and go on to the late open items, L1, L2, L3, L4.
Seconder, Councillor Burkett. Any opposition? All those in favour?
Yes.
7-0.
Okay.
So, L1.
Okay, right.
Do we need staff here for that?
Apologies,
Let's
councillor.
L1 is Roma STP inlet works concept design basis.
Look, through the chair, what I can advise you is this report is really just an information report, and we need to have council's acknowledgement of the current status of the project for the funding agreement. Further reports will come to you in the near future in relation to the finalisation of the concepts and any additional costs.
I'm happy to move.
Councillor Burkett.
I'd like to move that council receive and note the officer's report as presented.
Councillor Guthrie seconded. Any opposition? There's a mover wish to speak to the motion? All those in favour?
Yes.
7-0. L2.
Oh, thank you. I'm just making sure this thing is off.
L2. Sole supplier status for quarry and pit material testing. Have a mover, please.
Can I ask a question first?
Councillor O'Neill, question?
Through the chair to the CEO, I assume. Just with the financial implications, said it's anticipated the funds for this expense will be included in the future budgets. So we're engaging AMP Geotech this year, but it's saying it'll be in future budgets.
Yeah, through the chair, won't be a second. Won't be a second. I don't know whether we've got Clayton
This
online.
financial year's budget, it's included in the current budget in the paragraph above.
Essentially, what this is asking you to do is approve the...
No dollar value.
Yes, approve the sole supplier status.
is- I think that's-
They would be supplying as part of projects, and that would be incorporated in those budgets.
Okay.
And/or any future budgets.
Got it. I'm happy with that.
Okay, do I have a mover, please? Councillor Ladbrokes.
I'd like to move that council approve the sole supplier status of AMB Geotech SQS Proprietary Limited for testing of quarry products at the Roma quarry and other council pits as required in accordance with S.235 of the Local Government Act, Government Regulations 2012.
Councillor O'Neill, the seconder. Is there any opposition? Anyone want to speak? All those in favour?
Yes.
7-0.
93.
A bit out of whack, yeah.
So through the chair, page
94.
93.
93. Material, item L3, material change of use, extractive industry, up to 400,000 tonnes per annum, reference 2022-20582. Do I have a mover, please?
Mr. No, I just want to, can we lay this on the table? Because is there any chance that we can do that inspection, site inspection? Because that's the only thing we haven't done to tick all the boxes. I don't think another little bit of time.
Are you moving to be laid on the table to a site inspection or something?
If that's
To
possible.
allow for a visit. Look, through the chair, I was contacted by the next door neighbour yesterday to say that they're still very interested in offering council the opportunity to come and have a site inspection.
Because after, that's everything we've spoken about, everything else bar that.
But doesn't this have to be done so we can move on with the rest?
That's what I was going to ask.
So through the chair, I did circulate to you for the benefit of the chamber is that we have been discussing that there's a sequence of development applications that have to go through the process. Look, what I can advise you is that the neighbouring DA is already in draft and is being revised, and it will be revised based on whether you make a decision or not today, to be shared with the applicant, the next door neighbour, so that they will have a copy of their draft DA application form, as we speak, in the very near future. Yes, if we lay this on the table, it will delay that application assessment. However, I think council's original concerns were that we hadn't started on that subsequent DA, and we're well advanced. So the two are side by side, but they are reliant on each other. This MCU must go first, and the secondary one will go second.
So the Collinsons were made aware of where we were with it, with that phone call yesterday?
Look, through the chair, I believe so after the deputation, yes.
Councillor Guthrie, you had a question?
I was just going to say, where is the Collinson's DA at? Is it
Yes.
almost at,
So-
is it concluded? Is it-
So through the chair, the email that I've circulated today, what's saying is that the Collinson's DA was drafted and provided to council for review, obviously from a planning perspective in relation to comments and suggested changes. These are actually being finalised this week from council side. Once finalised, the application package will be sent as a final draft to the Collinsons for their review and to provide landowner consent. So we're at that point, it's ready for them to take that step. So it's a bit, it's certainly advanced to the point that it can be assessed in detail once that part is finalised. So that both, this MCU is ready to be decided on. It's up to council as to whether you want to decide on that today or at a future date. A site visit has been offered, and the subsequent DA is sitting there, ready to be transferred across to them.
If we do the site, which I think we should, the site visit, is that technically mightn't change anything in here, but could we even have a special meeting to decide this?
Look, through the chair, that's certainly an option to council.
After the site?
It's just delaying
Because we've got 3 weeks hiatus at the moment.
What's a
We can probably
hiatus?
get
Well,
that
not quite. I mean, the reason we moved the meeting was.
disease.
2 or 3 days.
Some will be away.
Yeah, but that's 3 days.
Potatoes.
There's still a lot of time within that period to have a.
Yes, so through the chair, if it's not decided today, it will be at the next council meeting, should council wish to.
Or
Yeah.
a special meeting.
Yeah, or a special meeting.
Councillor Hancock?
My internet might be playing up. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, we got you.
Sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Have I lost you? Hello?
Now we can hear you.
Now let
Can
me-
you hear us?
we can hear you, councillor Hancock.
Okay, sorry. My question is. Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, my question is, if we put the DA through today, can we just put another point there saying that we would go for a site visit anyway? Like, is a site visit, is it about their DA or about our DA?
Through the chair, I think the invitation to attend their site was in conjunction with our DA. Not their, I suppose it'd be applicable to both, but at the same point is the offer was made because the neighbour was aware that our development application process, our MCU, was being considered by council.
I would like to move that, I'd like to move that we lay this on the table.
We've got a live
Yeah, I've already said this.
motion.
Have you? Right, okay, where is it?
But then there was a lot of questions getting asked after that.
So what did you, you
I
pull
just-
that up on the screen?
Put it on the table till after a site inspection. And I wasn't sure if we could go ahead with this, like Councillor Hancock said, but.
It'd have to be pretty quick.
So,
Well, I really think, anyway, let's talk about it. What have you moved? We lay it on the table till after a site inspection has been undertaken. Is that what you've moved?
More or less, yeah.
Yep. Because just for councillors' benefit too, that there is the matter of hours and so forth. So I think that site inspection will flesh out all of the issues before we have to make a decision. So we'll go to the vote on laying it on the table till after a site inspection has been undertaken. All those in favour?
Yeah.
And all those against? No one's against, so it's 8-0.
Can I just have a question? When
Please go.
did we think we'd have a site inspection?
9-0.
It'd be that, no, councillor, Edwards, he's not online, is he?
No, he's out for medical
That's right.
appointment.
Oh, medical,
Apologies,
yeah.
it is too.
So, so it'll be the next briefing. We will have the site inspection.
3
I would,
weeks.
yep. And then the next day will be in Surat and we can decide it.
Fit it in on that briefing day?
And look, certainly what I can do is I can talk to the Collinsons and select some suitable dates and actually circulate them so council can make a decision.
Are you happy with that?
We finished at 3 o'clock yesterday, so we should be able to. So there mustn't be a huge amount of things. So, okay.
It's not going to hold it up.
No.
The extra 3 weeks, that was all.
Righto, moving on to I move that we deal with L4, revised policy, register of local significance, heritage place, flora and fauna, till later in the meeting for a councillor to be involved. All those in favour? All those against? Have we lost councillor Hancock?
Sounds like.
Yes.
Yeah, so are you against or
You know who we
you're
waiting
in
for?
favour
Which director to give us
or against?
Councillor.
In favour, thank you.
1, 2.
In favour. So basically,
6-2.
yeah, 6-2, if I can call for a division.
And that was councillor Taylor and the other councillor.
Councillor O'Neill and Councillor Taylor.
Yeah.
So we're back on the.
Back to
Yeah.
the ones in the open. Yours.
The last two are
So-
you on the open.
105.
Page 105.
105, 17.1, micro small business development procurement. I'd like to move that, Councillor Guthrie, do you have any wording that that you would have for that? Otherwise, you were just saying it's not a lot of detail in this.
No, my concern was promote and sustain, sorry Kel, can you just go up? I don't understand what promote and sustain local businesses, what it relates to it. To me, it's too generic or too open, or, I mean, I'm not quite sure what the strategy is focused for.
Right, I'm happy to accept some wording off the floor, but I'd like to firstly move that a report, for council to receive a report on considering micro, small, competitive local business in all procurement changes. And I can go and explain that when I explain what it's about, and I'm happy to get anything else in there.
I was going to ask a question, Mr.
Yeah, please go ahead.
I'm not quite getting my head around it. Micro panel obviously would be $5,000 again, I would imagine.
Yeah, yeah.
But don't we already have a panel provisions for stuff under 5,000?
Yeah, I'm happy to answer that. So this is about, for instance, we might be going and having someone on a micro panel, or even before the micro panel, just doing work for council under quotes. And then council, for instance, says, oh, now we need, because it's the amount of money, we need a panel, but we don't actually bring the local business on the journey to get on the panel, hypothetically. And then we go out, and it's happened multiple times in the past, where the locals don't get a chop at it anymore. So what I'm saying is, when we do procurement, we should actually consider, like for instance, someone could be working for council, and then they go, right, we've got to go to a next level of procurement, but we don't actually say, have we got all of these local businesses actually on that? Because sometimes we've had situations where they have not applied to be on that panel, so they can't be considered. And one of the reasons that I get from businesses is I didn't know about it. Whereas one of the things that could come back in the report is that we actually contact the decision maker or the owner to say, we have to go to a panel instead of quotes. Would you like state development to help you with getting on that? Because yeah, what happens is the locals get chopped out of the deal. They don't actually get considered, because when we go and put the panel out, there's no locals on it, for instance. As an example of it.
I'm still not with it, because Mr. Mayor, I'm not going to get out of town, it's out of the Shire. No one's going to come here for $5,000.
No, what I'm saying is, when we go from, for instance, quotes to having a panel or something like that, sometimes we don't bring the people on the journey, or we don't notify them enough that we've got something that is going out and it's going to change. So they're just not going to get rung up. We need a quote. Councillor Guthrie.
So, Mr. Mayor, are you maybe seeking the officers to drop a list of local businesses in our Maranoa region under headings as to the type of what they provide, or the area of expertise, so that we've got a list? Because other than that, how would we then know which Maranoa businesses might be suited for particular?
Through the chair, part of your problem is when you say in all procurement, you run into a whole range of problems, because you go, procurement is X, right? Whatever it is. Then it's how do you procure? And my understanding, listening to you talking, is it's more about the approach of the how rather than the how, because for argument's sake, if I want audit services, I'm not going to go to my micro and small competitive local businesses. No. But what you're trying to do is increase the micro and small competitive local businesses' participation. But is it participation in all businesses? Because that's a key word.
Yeah,
is
participation
what kind of approaches might we use to encourage that? Because your procurement policy does support, local. It's just around, it's more about the how, isn't it? It's about the organisation making every effort to make sure that local business and micro businesses are included. Is that?
Yeah. Councillor Hancock, and then I think Taylor.
Mr Mayor, when I read this report, I thought that you were trying to reach our KPIs for our small business friendly program, and I thought it was more about that, which obviously is about procurement. My suggestion then would be that council receives a report on developing a strategy to implement the small business program in our procurement policy.
So
That's how I thought. That's what I thought it was about.
and
Develop a strategy of how to implement that small business program into our procurement policy.
okay, Councillor Taylor.
Well, just going on what Councillor Hancock says, that makes more sense to me than anything else that I've heard, because, I mean, businesses they're in business, so I just don't know why you think you have to lead them to the water. They can get to the water. Like, I just don't, the micro bit really gets me as well. So I just don't understand any of this at all. Like, I just don't know what you're trying to achieve. We have procurement, we now have micro suppliers, or whatever you want to call them. Like, how far are you going to go here?
Well, point E in the report, or the detailed request for details of requested agenda, that local business or micro or small business decision makers are aware of changes in regular business practice if there are vendor panel changes, meaning that they might have quotes and they get their business through quotes, just give quote to council, or they might get employed on an hourly rate on a small thing, and then this is where this comes in. And if there's vendor panel changes, sometimes we make a vendor panel where we've never had one before, that they have access to council business, noting that we can skill people up in relation to using vendor panel and also partner with state development. So what happens is, and this has happened many times since I've been in council, they've had quotes and that they were just getting the work and sailing along lovely. And then we changed something internally.
Let them know.
No, yeah, but we did it via just an email. And what I'm saying is it could be a phone call to the decision maker. Listen, because of the amount of work, we have to change how we do procurement. It's going up to a different level. We're making a panel. We're doing something. We want you to be aware of it, and we would like you, as part of competitive local business, you and all the other local businesses, that we would like you on the panel. And what do you think? And they go, no, I'm not interested. I don't do any paperwork. Fine. You can't do anything for them. But what I'm saying is, we're not getting value for money because they're getting chopped out of that process sometimes. And we have to make changes because of our procurement levels in council on dollar values, right? So we have to do that.
You're trying to change the procurement policy.
No, what I'm saying is making the procurement policy that we actually include speaking to the decision maker and having a process where we consider our smaller contracts when we start doing bigger contracts, right? We consider them in the mix, because there was one example of a service that was provided, and we went out on a bigger scope. It was out of town people that got the work, that's fine, but the quality of the work wasn't very good. So this is an example, and when you talk to them, before that, they were using, probably on a quote system or something, they were using local businesses. So this is why I'm saying, if we have like we ask for a report and we make a policy that you must consider local business, in that, it's not just our 20% and all those things. It's actually a way of thinking that we consider our smaller contractors when we make large decisions, is really what I'm saying. Councillor McMullen.
Mayor, but this is about a micro panel.
Yeah, this is.
And the word micro restricts it to $5,000.
Well, I was actually talking about micro or small business development for a procurement. So it's not the panel. I haven't got the word panel in there. It's just got micro. Micro is 1 to 3 staff. So micro and small business is just the size of the business. It's not the panel. But what I'm saying is we don't consider, when we make changes, we don't have a policy that considers keeping competitive local business. We have it when we decide the tender or whatever, but we don't have it in our workings. So in simple form, and what I'm actually asking is a report of how can we have a direction to our officers to say we want you to consider competitive local business when you make procurement decisions.
So just noting that last comment is in relation to what one of the councillors has raised, is this still about a report on how a strategy can implement the small business program and the 50% target, especially in relation to the implementation of council's procurement policy for small, local and micro businesses?
Yeah.
Because it's about increasing participation in council's overall procurement. Because you've given the organisation direction to go, okay, we want to see 50% of the spend, all spend being local. And secondly, yes, we've just signed up to a small business friendly program, and you have a procurement policy, but from what you're saying, it's really about how we're implementing that policy.
And when we change from smaller levels of procurement to larger levels of procurement, do we bring people on the journey? Do we cut them out inadvertently? And really a report about how we can act like that. Because this example was one where the service was worse and we got because we made it into a big contract. And if you're supportive of local businesses, this is about actually bringing them on the journey from the small to the large.
So I'm just trying to capture some wording here. But in a sense, it's how do we provide a more welcoming environment for small and local and micro?
Or when we change procurement overnight and we say we've got to change something different, how do we bring them on the journey for competitive local business? Because what happens is we often leave them behind. If they don't have an office of people to do all the paperwork for.
So you're saying that they're unaware of the changes and
unaware,
they might miss
don't
out on
know
the
how
job.
to fix it, and people that have got like quotes.
Does any of those up there say what you're trying to say?
Yeah.
Council be provided a report on strategy to implement a small business program into our procurement policy. In our and I just need in there, the bottom one is good. But consideration, like it needs to have strategy for consideration of small business. So we're considering them when we do things. Like when we go from quotes to a panel to tenders, we're considering what we're already doing now. Because sometimes we lose them in the approach.
Are we talking about increased participation? Because
definitely that would happen over time. So I'm happy to have that in.
From what you're saying is you're saying that at times our small, local and micro businesses aren't participating because they get left off or they get left behind.
They get left off the next level of procurement.
So wouldn't it read that council will provide a report on developing a strategy that considers small and local and micro businesses?
Or to enhance small and local business participation in procurement principles, in all procurement. Is it that going back to more or less the philosophy is saying the small stuff is maximising the participation in all of that procurement, and what I'm hearing you saying is that at times could be an approach of how we actually provide a welcoming environment for small business, but it could also be the way we break up our contracts or...
any of that. And I think it would go to Councillor Hancock's point that this would actually go to the 50%. Councillor McMullen?
May I move this lay on the table and we discuss it at a briefing or something, because I still don't get my head around what you're trying to achieve.
You're not still hung up on the micro panel?
Yeah, it's got me,
No, it's not going to put it.
Okay, all those in favour of laying on the table?
Yes.
All those against? 7-1 if I can call for a division. Okay, moving on. Is there anything else left on that?
You've got one there.
Next page.
17.2, high-level planning scheme for renewable energy projects and projects/development. I'd like to move that a report be provided for an upcoming council meeting, providing options, if available, for planning advice about the process that could be followed about identifying areas, zones and sites that were not suitable for renewable energy projects, on how council could go about capturing these as part of our planning scheme, acknowledging that we are not always the planning approving agent or something like that. Body. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Ladbroke. Does anyone wish to speak to it? I'll speak to it. I'm extremely concerned of what's happening with the wind industry as far as just not the protection for landowners. And I'm questioning whether it is actually the best energy resource for renewables. And I think that we need to protect the community as much as possible, and I certainly would be interested to see how, if we could, in any way, use our planning scheme to highlight issues that where we would like to see development. Does anyone else wish to speak? Then we'll go to the vote. All those in favour?
Yes.
8-0.
I could have took one over them. Could have happened.
Okay, do we have any conflicts?
Yeah,
Councillor Burkett?
I'll just see who first, is it? Yeah.
Oh, Councillor Guthrie, might be.
My intention is just to make a statement. I have a conflict with item C2, request to grant discount assessment 15020704. I've previously made a declaration in past meetings for any agenda item related to a review of rate assessment, requesting concession due to loss of capping on supplementary rate notices. I reaffirm my intention to leave the room whilst this matter is discussed and voted on.
Item C5, description licence, Commonwealth of Australia, represented by the Department of Defence. Declaring council as Councillor John Burkett, a person of interest myself. Particular interest, probably a long bow, but we are currently renting a house in Edward Street in the vicinity of this property. Declarable conflict of interest. Although I have a declarable conflict of interest, I do not believe a reasonable person could have a perception of bias. Therefore, I will choose to remain in the meeting. However, I will respect the decision of the meeting on whether I can remain and participate in the decision.
Okay. Do we have any wording? Councillor O'Neill.
I move that it is in the public interest that Councillor Burkett participates and votes on agenda item C5 because a reasonable person would trust that the decision is made in the public interest.
We have a seconder, Councillor Taylor. Anyone wish to speak? Then we're going to go to the vote. All those in favour?
Yes.
Okay, 7.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a statement too, please.
Sure. So just get that vote right.
7-0.
Yeah, 7-0. Okay, Councillor Hancock.
Kel, would you mind scrolling down? I will just read this same wording as Councillor Guthrie did, please.
Can I ask a question first?
Please go ahead.
Yeah.
Has this particular item of these people been to council before?
Yes. About 3 or 4 times.
Those particular people? Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
My statement is, I have a conflict with item C.2, request to grant discount. Sorry, it's gone. I will take L50207004. I have previously made I haven't made a declaration over that assessment number.
So that's
But
my point.
I've previously made declarations in the past meetings for any agenda items related to a review of rate assessment requesting concession due to loss of capping on supplementary rate notices. I reaffirm my intention to leave the room once this matter is discussed and voted on.
Righto, any other conflicts?
Can I just clarify this, because I think this is really relevant? That assessment number was listed.
Exactly.
That assessment number has been listed. The actual C.2 Request to grant discount may be different, but the assessment number has been previously listed, and I have actually done notified you of a conflict of interest for a list of, and there were about 20 that were down, and I stepped out for that one. So it's related to the same one I've declared previously conflicts for.
No, that makes sense now.
Yeah. I was just going to say, that assessment notice has had one discount, and they're seeking more.
Yeah. No, I get that now.
One extension, yep.
Okay, any other conflicts? Okay, do we have someone to go into closed? Councillor O'Neill.
I move that in accordance with the provisions of section 245J3 of the Local Government Regulation 2012, the council resolved to close the meeting to the public to discuss confidential items that the council is consider is necessary to close the meeting. In accordance with section 254J5 of the Local Government Regulation 2012, the following table provides the matters to be discussed, an overview of what is to be discussed while the meeting is closed. C1, Services Building Roma. C2, Request to grant discount assessment 150-20704. C3, Request to waive debt recovery legal fees assessment 150-19102. C4, Notice to rescind resolution OM 08202389. C5, Licence of Commonwealth of Australia represented by the Department of Defence. C6, Additional shoulder works under RMPC Mitchell St George Road. C7, Surat Housing and Land Options Analysis. C8, Yuleba APLNG Community Project Update. C9, CEO Performance Review 2023.
Okay, do we have a seconder? Councillor Burkett. Any opposition? We'll go to the vote. All those in favour?
Yes.
8-0.
Close.
Okay, C1, Services Building Roma. Do we have a mover? Councillor McMullen, Councillor O'Neill.
I'll move that we lay this on the table till an upcoming council meeting so we can get further advice as discussed in closed session of council.
Okay. Did you want to put some detail around that, because that gives the staff some direction? Or did you want to go in a different direction?
Oh. Like what's there now?
Yeah.
Well, I won't lay this on the table. I'll move that. Oh no, it might be easier if it's on the table. I'll move that this lay on the table to an upcoming council meeting pending the outcome of further investigation in relation to the lease and building works.
Okay, well, it's just laying on the table, so we don't need that. So all those in favour?
Yes.
9-0. C2, page 44. C2. Yeah, C2, Request to grant discount assessment 150-20704.
Mr Mayor, I have a conflict, but I'm wondering, Madam CEO, can you just mute the chambers instead of me getting on and off
Just
my internet connection?
okay. Let me try this and see if this works for you. Can you hear us?
If you mute
No.
the chambers.
Okay, I'm at. Yeah. Oops, sorry.
Go for a restroom break.
Just doesn't want to. I did that.
It's okay. I'll get
Yeah, I think that's the best thing to do.
Yep.
Because then you've left them, no, because you haven't left the meeting.
No.
Okay, so Councillor Hancock has left the meeting.
Okay.
Yeah, okay, I would like to move, have I actually said it? I think I did.
Yes, you read the order.
So I'd like to move option 2 in accordance with Local Government Regulation 2012, Section 130.10, grant the discount. Oh, we've got different wording, have we?
I
Grant,
was going to say read.
So it's the second, sorry, yes.
but you've got some wording here.
That's
Is that
exactly
got
right.
all?
It's slightly different. That's incorporated everything.
Righto. I'd like to move that council extend the discount in accordance with the Local Government Regulation 2012, I would imagine that would be.
Yes.
Section 139.10, grant the discount.
3010, sorry.
Sorry, Section 130.10, grant the discount for the amount of $7,779.15 on.
77770, not 7779. If you could just repeat the figure.
Righto. 777.9 and
7770.
7,770.
yeah, righto. $7,770.15 on rate assessment number 150200704 if paid on or before 30th of September 2023. Do we have a?
Second.
I think there's another, we're not doing the other line?
No.
Okay, all good, thank you.
Right, okay. Now, do we have a seconder? Councillor Ladbrook. Does anybody wish to speak to the motion? I basically think this is in line with the rates freeze that has been handed down by this council, and I look forward to clearing this matter up for the benefit of the resident and also council. Does anyone else wish to speak? Then we're going to go to the vote. All those in favour? No one else online?
No.
Two.
That's,
Yep, so that's 7-0.
Come back in.
Yes, please.
I'll put a zapper on his chair.
How was that, George?
Made that way. Made him look like a sloth.
Yeah, by the time George thinks about it.
so that's page 61.
Okay, 61, C.3 Request to waive debt recovery legal fees assessment 150-19102. Councillor McMullen.
Mr Mayor, I'll move that Council 1 does not waive the debt recovery legal fees for rate assessment 150.
Sorry, Mayor, Councillor Hancock needs to be let in.
Oh.
Oh, she should still go.
Forgot about that.
Oh, waiting in lobby.
She went off the internet,
Let me,
didn't she?
Kel, it's just got.
Oh.
Beautiful. Yep, thank you.
I'll start again. I move that Council 1 does not waive the debt recovery legal fees for the rate assessment 150-19102. Number 2, propose a payment arrangement for the rate assessment, including the debt recovery legal fees, to be paid in full by 31st of January 2024, being prior to the next rate notice being issued, should the ratepayer be unable to make full payment. 3, advise the ratepayer that if payment arrangement is entered into, it will still accrue interest at the current rate of 4% per annum compounding on daily balances. B, failure to make payment either in full or by committing to a payment arrangement may incur further legal fees.
Do we have a seconder? Councillor O'Neill. Any opposition?
No, should there be something in there about the available options that they can take advantage of or not?
That's up to the rates.
CEO.
Yep.
Is it?
So through the chair, the payment arrangement is a financial arrangement whereby someone is paying by instalments. Yes.
Yeah, but you don't discuss the other options. Yeah. Yeah.
A rate,
You know, hardship thing.
Yeah, through,
The availability of some other.
Are they open as part of our policy, CEO?
Look, through the chair, you have had somebody write to you seeking a concession. Certainly they
Yes.
haven't dictated a policy, so we could say we do have a policy. It is likely that even the outcome of that policy, should an application be written to us, the answer may still be the same. But we would offer that there is a financial assistance
That'll be
policy
offered in the thing. Okay.
that they could consider further.
Right.
So that's just part of our standard council policies.
Yes.
Nothing
Righto.
special. That they could apply. Now, does the mover wish to speak to the motion?
No, thanks, Mr Mayor.
Does anyone else wish to speak? Then we'll go to the vote. All those in favour?
Yes.
9-0.
So page 70,
Thank you. Page 70.
and remember with this one, whoever moves it.
Oh, yeah,
Yep.
okay. Page 70, C4, notice to rescind resolution OM/08.2023/89. And note, does anyone have a conflict on any of this? No, good. Councillor O'Neill.
Move that Council 1 rescind OM 08202389 and 2 resolve A to sell the land listed in the below schedule for overdue rates or charges pursuant to section 1402 of the Local Government Regulation 2012. B, delegate to the Chief Executive Officer its powers to 1, give a notice of intention to sell the land to all interested parties under section 1403 of the Local Government Regulation 2012, and 2, take all further steps required under sections 141, 142, 143, 144, 145 and 146 of the Local Government Regulation 2012 to effect the sale of the land as listed as part of Resolution OM 08202389, and C, authorise the Mayor and CEO or delegate to approach residents where appropriate to confirm Council's decision.
Okay, we have a seconder, Councillor McMullen.
Just through the chair, could I just ask, in item C, where you've got authorise the Mayor and the CEO to approach residents where appropriate to confirm Council's decision, could we just insert the word further confirm Council's decision? Because you are making a decision today, it's not up to the Mayor or myself. Any approach that we would make to any ratepayer would be just to reconfirm Council's decision.
Can I just suggest something too? Instead of having the abbreviation, CEO should have the full thing there, the full name, sorry.
Righto.
Yep.
Okay.
Why is that?
Oh, you don't know what CEO means?
Yes, I do.
Could
I'm
be
happy
anything.
with it being CEO. It's been consistent for the last 10 years to have
Could-
CEO.
Could be anything.
Not in our organisational structure. It's,
Well, it could be anything.
it's Chief Executive Officer under Maranoa Regional Council.
Well, well, just on that.
I would argue that.
Councillor O'Neill and Councillor Edwards, I was at a meeting and one of the residents said that wherever you have a shortened name, you should have the long version first and then have the shortened name. So that's what one of the residents said. So.
Through you, Mr Mayor, I do normally expand that out to the full Chief Executive Officer as part of the minutes, so it's
good.
consistent.
Excellent.
Yeah, when
Excellent.
published.
Very good. Okay, so we have a
I'll just
mover.
confirm that says to reconfirm Council's decision.
Righto. Now, do we have someone wish to speak to the motion? Anyone wish to speak? Then we're going to go to the vote. All those in favour?
Yes.
9-0. Righto, moving on to the next one.
76.
Thank you. C5, licence Commonwealth of Australia represented by the Department of Defence. Do we have a mover? Councillor Taylor.
I'd like to move that Council 1 enter into a 7-year licence with the option of a further 5-year term with the Commonwealth of Australia represented by the Department of Defence over Lot 1 on R8684, being that part of the land located at the Roma Training Depot, 238 to 256 Edwards Street, North Roma. 2, pay an annual licence fee of $1 plus GST if demanded. 3, acknowledge that the Department of Defence will mow the levee on their side of the fence, and Maranoa Regional Council will be responsible for the maintenance and management of all other aspects of the levee. And 4, authorise the Chief Executive Officer or delegate to sign the licence.
Right, we have a seconder, Councillor Ladbrook. Does anyone wish to speak to it? We're going to go to the vote. All those in favour?
Yes.
9-0. Righto, moving on to C6, page 123.
That's right.
123.
Thank you. C6, additional shoulder works under RMPC Mitchell St George Road. Councillor Burkett.
I'd like to move that Council 1 appoints Suffocon Proprietary Limited to undertake an additional 3 sections of shoulder resheeting on the Mitchell St George Road while mobilised to the area to undertake the high priority section. 2, authorise the Chief Executive Officer or delegate to enter into final negotiations with Suffocon Proprietary Limited. Suffocon, what do I say?
Suffocon.
It's very suffocating. And form a contract to carry out the works if final terms are acceptable.
Do we have a seconder? Councillor Edwards. Any opposition? Does anyone wish to speak?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I think this is fantastic news for everyone in the region, especially those that live down that area on the St George Road with the dangerous situations we've had in the X amount of years, and I think everyone will be happy travelling that route, whether a transport provider or a tourist or a landowner. So look forward to the end result.
Okay, does anyone else wish to speak? I'll speak. I'd personally like to thank the district manager for Department of Transport and Main Roads for making this happen. I'd also like to thank our staff that have been involved with making this happen. But without the manager or district manager or director, he has been instrumental in making sure that this happens with our staff, and I'd like to thank Department of Transport and Main Roads for this effort. And I believe that this will be, as it's quoted from the people that drive the road, if we can get this done, this will be life-saving because people fear for their life on this road. So congratulations for the Department of Transport and Main Roads and also council staff for making this happen when it could have been years away. So congratulations, and very excited to see this here today and know that the works are happening imminently. Okay, does anyone else wish to speak? Does the Mayor wish to sum up?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to also thank the TMR and Maranoa Region Council, especially Deputy Director Cam, but also BAG for their advocacy for this, as well as the guys in this room that have been pushing for it. It'll bring it up to the standard that, well, the rest of the 80% of the highway is to St George, so I think this is a great move forward.
Okay, well, on that note, we'll go to the vote. All those in favour?
Yes.
9-0. Okay, moving on.
Page 130.
Thank you. C7, Surat Housing and Land Options Analyst.
I'm more happy to move, Mr. Mayor.
Please go ahead.
I move that Council 1 advocate to the state government to excise land with exemption without full survey of the town common. 2, assist existing landowners who wish to develop their own properties currently not connected to council assets within the Surat priority infrastructure area. 3, finalise costings for connection of water and sewerage at Alexander Streets, lots 101 to 107, to be considered at a quarterly budget review or the 24-25 budget, full stop. 4, consider a funding allocation or seek external funding in 2024-25 to purchase existing or provide new stock in Surat.
Do we have a seconder? Councillor McMullen. Any option? Anyone in opposition? Does the Mayor wish to speak to the motion?
thanks, Mr Mayor. Mr Mayor, I'm really hoping this resolution gets up today, as there is some really good opportunity for the council to advocate and assist local developers to be able to get on with putting some housing stock in Surat. And I think that's where we need to be at this point in time, is to offer any assistance that we can so that we can get some new housing stock in Surat, so that we can further expand our little community of Surat down there. And any assistance that council can give will be greatly appreciated.
Okay, does anyone else wish to speak? I too am supportive of this motion. I think that we need to be able to have consistent amounts of sustainable housing. I believe that, as I said today, there's local builders that are willing to build houses. We need to find cost-effective ways of helping them, either develop land or council get in, and if we could find some long-term sustainable money, that we could build some houses as well. And every house that we take off pressure on the local market, it can support other people having houses. So certainly be supporting this. There's a fair bit in this resolution, and look forward to it progressing and coming back to council. Does anyone else wish to speak? Does the mover wish to sum up?
Yes, thanks, Mr Mayor. Yes, Mr Mayor, this resolution actually does tick 3 boxes for me. It is advocating to release more land around Surat, where we are land blocked by stock route. It is assisting local developers to get on with developing their blocks and putting new housing stock there. And it's also looking at ways where council can purchase housing in the future to put on their existing blocks. So I think this is it's a really win-win resolution for the Surat community, and I look forward to seeing some of the outcomes from it.
Okay, on that note, we'll go to the vote. All those in favour?
Yes.
9-0. C8, Yuleba APLNG Community Project Update. Do we have a mover? Councillor O'Neill.
I move the Council 1 receive and note this report as an update on the Yuleba Australian Pacific LNG Proprietary Limited APLNG Community Project. Continue to progress the project to the detailed design stage, including the preparation of design drawings and construction procurement. 3, provide the designs for the Yuleba Main Street improvements and Judd's Lagoon improvements to APLNG. And 4, display the designs for the Yuleba Main Street improvements and Judd's Lagoon improvements at the Yuleba Customer Service Centre.
We have a seconder, Councillor Ladbrook. Does anyone wish to speak to it? Councillor O'Neill, do you wish to speak at all?
Oh, unless someone else wanted to speak.
Righto. No, I'll certainly speak about, obviously thank APLNG for their contribution as part of livability improvements, as far as the agreement that council made. Would certainly, we've been waiting a long time. I believe a lot of the bottlenecks are going to disappear in the next 12 months, and look forward to being able to get this project delivered. We had a lot of feedback from the Yuleba community, and it's about putting it into action. And with the new upgrades to the bridge, Muggins Lane Bridge, it will be part of a whole suite of things that are done for livability in Yuleba. So look forward to getting that developed and delivered. Does anyone else wish to speak? Then we're going to go to the vote. All those in favour?
Yes.
Okay, 9-0. C9, CEO Performance Review 2023. I move that this lay on the table until the next ordinary meeting. All those in favour?
Yes.
9-0. And
Back to Councillor.
14.3 and L4.
So, page 99.
Page 99.
thank you. 14.3, Roma and District Tennis Club Incorporated. Councillor Ladbrook, you've got a conflict as you've declared.
Well, I was moving this one. I had, yeah. You tell one that?
No one
It
had
was
moved
laid.
it by the time I jumped in to ask. You wanted to, and I said I was going to lay it on the table.
Well, I'm happy to move it, Mr Mayor.
I just, Mayor, we've got feedback, so thank you, Leo, on the email to one of the questions. I just didn't see anything about the subdivision. Was that there as well?
I did have a note.
Did you get an email?
Yeah.
Yeah, from
Kelly, it'll come up
Kelly.
as Kelly.
Oh, Kelly.
Co-society agreement.
Okay, so do we have an answer to the other question about the length of the term of the lease and whether we can tie them, well, you know, have dates that tie them in together?
No, I think we're on, that's cross purposes. This one was about, on page 101, it talks about if we wanted to offer something more than 10 years, and it might not be an answer for today, and it probably won't hold this up, but it would be good to know as to into the future, should we be acting on some process to subdivide that off, so that when they get to their arrangement with the state, as Councillor McMullen pointed out, it's all as one. Yeah. But that won't hold up today.
Councillor Burkett.
I'd like to move that Council 1 and pursuant to S2362 of the Local Government Regulation 2012 Queensland, that Council grant the subject, is it sound right? Grant the lease, the subject of the following resolution without tender or auction on the basis that the trustee lease is to be granted to the community organisation as permitted by the exception conferred by S2361B2 of the Local Government Regulation 2012 Queensland. 2, grant a trustee lease to the Roma District Tennis Club Incorporated over part of the reserve land described as Lot 5 on SP 10335, subject to the following conditions. A, the total term, including options to renew, of the trustee lease is not to exceed 10 years. B, Council and the Roma District Tennis Association Incorporated reach agreement on the terms and conditions of the lease to satisfaction of the Council's Chief Executive Officer or Delegate. And 3, authorise the Chief Executive Officer or Delegate to sign the lease and any associated documentation.
We have a second, Councillor Guthrie.
Can I ask a question?
Please go ahead.
Would it be cleaner for A, just to offer 10 years with no options? Because you're going to offer a 5 and then another 5, but if they get the funding, they're going to build the squash courts, and they've got the overall lease on the rest of it through until 2033 anyway. Do you just make it cleaner and offer them a 10-year lease?
But there might be a reason why they've done it that way. Is there a reason total lease is not exceeding 10 years?
The trigger for the 10 year would be that clause
The
you're
land
talking about that we just can't respond to today about the 10 years.
No, accept that, but here it says the total term, including options to renew of the trustee lease, is not to exceed 10 years.
Yes.
Well, don't have any options within that 10, we'll just give them 10.
Well, I suppose having an option 5 by 5, it just gives the option, should something not be, I suppose if something's not going well with the lessee, you've got that option obviously after a 5-year period.
But that said though, Director, we've just put $250,000 in the budget to help them build the squash courts, which are attached to the tennis courts. We talk about
It gives them longevity.
streamlining red tape. This would, for both parties, remove that, so that they don't have to come back to us in 5 years or council have to approach them. So can I move an amendment, Councillor Burkett, that just simply says a term of 10 years?
I'm happy with that.
Okay, so is the seconder happy with that?
I'm just going to mention, Mr Mayor, too, they've been there about 60 years, so
Yeah.
60 years, I mean, they were there when I went to school, so.
They're pouring a bit of money in there now.
Is that only 60?
Okay, so does the move wish to speak to the motion?
I think this is well, if we've been together for 60 years, it's as good as any marriage I know of, so I think it's working well, and there's great people running it, and I think the future plans they have with including the squash courts is an awesome addition to the sporting precinct, and look forward to see it come to fruition.
Righto, does anyone else wish to speak? Councillor O'Neill?
Just to largely concur with Councillor Burkett. I mean, you leave here, if you're in and around here on a Monday afternoon, there's other days of the week, it is absolutely packed, the tennis court precinct. And I know, and we've heard it from the representatives that are very passionate about squash, they've been trying for the last decade, had a bit of a false start, thought they had a precinct and then it didn't work out. And I just think, you know, for a council that is very centred on livability and livability projects, this adds to the livability, and not just for Roma. People will travel if they're passionate about squash to come into town, and so if this is another step in the right direction to supporting getting this up and going in our region, then I'm happy to support it.
Okay, does anyone, Councillor
Just
Edwards?
asked a question. I'm just wondering if I missed something, but the actual SP says lot 5 on AP, but that should be SP. So what blocks that? That's the existing block, is it?
In front of the
Is that
the tennis building. It's in the car park.
That's it,
Yeah, it's that there. Yeah, righto. It's nothing to do with
No,
it.
no.
Righto, no, that's all right. Yeah, okay. It's nothing to do with the Girl Guides doing
No.
that, no, okay.
Righto.
No,
So
that's all
does
good, thank you.
Anyone else wish to speak? I'll speak. Certainly been very supportive of Roma District Tennis Club. Obviously, they're going for grants to be able to bring squash back to the Maranoa. I wish them well in that endeavour, and council has financially supported, made that commitment, providing they can come up with the rest of the funds. So it's something that we're certainly happy to support, and I'm very happy in that precinct to have all different users there using it for different purposes, and I think we've got the balance right, and I'll certainly be supporting this as part of the lease that it does have. On that note, does the move wish to sum up?
Mr Mayor, just to say that when I first got on the council, one of the biggest things I was hoping for was more push for sport in the region. This one ticks that box, and like I said, fantastic committee, and they're very proactive, and they've merged with another great committee, and I'm happy to support. And I go along with Councillor O'Neill's. It's very popular with tennis is dying in the bush, and it's good to see that it's kicking along in the bigger centre. So yeah, look forward to it to happen.
Yep. On that note, we'll go to the vote. All those in favour?
Yes.
Okay,
8-0.
Councillor Edwards, would you mind doing the honours? You're
Any
still
others,
once
Kel?
good, mate, doesn't mean.
Yes, the Flora and Fauna, which is on the late items, and that is page 104. 104.
That's it.
This is the last one, isn't it?
Oh, and that
Oh.
Oh, we doing that one?
one. I don't know.
It's that. 104. Yep.
L4, page 104. Revised policy document, register of locally significant heritage place, flora and fauna. Do we have a mover?
I'll move it.
Councillor Edwards.
I'll move that council, one, acknowledge that this report enacts resolution OM/04.2023/36. Number 2, adopt the updated register of locally significant heritage place, flora
Place it,
and fauna
Through
policy.
the chair, it should be places, it's plural.
Oh, places,
Yeah,
sorry.
apologies for that,
Okay.
I was just double
I'll
checking
go
that
back and do
myself.
that again. Number 2, adopt the updated register of locally significant heritage places, Flora and Fauna policy. In brackets, page, I think it says P
Yeah,
there.
I think
What's
it's
that?
policy number 23/8,
Policy-
version 2.
Sorry, policy 23-8 version 2 as presented with minor administrative changes to be inserted once adopted.
Okay, we have a seconder.
Can I just seek some clarification or ask some
Please
questions?
go ahead.
So I did look at the suggestions to update in the statement, and I still am not quite sure we've got it right. So I'm just happy to put it to my colleagues. So it says the register may be extended to privately owned land and state-controlled land, subject to the written consult or permission of the owner.
Consent.
Consent.
Yeah,
I
consent.
know what you mean.
I think there needs to be 2 sentences because you don't have state-controlled land that has an owner who's going to sign off on it. So I think it needs to have 2 that says the register may be extended to privately owned land, subject to the written consent and or permission of the owner. And then the next one, the register may be extended to state control. It just doesn't seem to be logical in the way the wording is put together.
Righto, so you're happy with that suggestion, Councillor Edwards?
Yeah. Yeah, the whole idea of it is,
It's on page 107.
the whole idea,
Into 2 sentences.
yeah,
Yeah, because as I said, how can you have the written consent or permission of the owner for state-controlled land?
Is that covered under minor administrative changes? Is that
CEO, is that, are you happy with
Look,
minor?
yeah, through the
No,
chair,
but just
that's,
on the screen there,
yeah, that's,
minor administrative
Is that
changes.
covered?
absolutely. Yes, I
That
think we foresaw that, yes.
Righto.
And the other clarification I've got is, does this align then to the state register for heritage places, etc.? Is it inclusive of or exclusive of it?
Look, through the chair, it's council's register. It isn't a formal link to the state processes. It's clearly a local register designed to capture, local significance. But no, it's not directly linked. There is a formal state significance process which can be entered into for anything, even that is locally significant, to raise it. But that is a formal process and it wouldn't be directly.
It's not to do with this.
So do we need to have the state-controlled land in there?
Yeah, no, it's just highlighting it where it could be advocated on that basis, like it's raising it.
So certainly what we would say, especially when it comes to flora and fauna, we have extensive state-controlled land as a trustee, and it would not be unusual for something of significance to sit on that state-controlled land reserve, and this just captures that process.
Councillor McMullen and then Taylor.
I'm a little bit concerned about council-controlled lands and that. That says including parks and all that, but road reserves and that, but that's going to create an issue. Because we have a policy already says that you can clear a fence line 3 metres without permission from the fence line. So
To written consent from the owner or any other relevant council policies. I'm just, giving some kind of catch call. It's a good point, is that we do have, when it comes to roads, we have some very specific
3 metres each side of the fence.
concessions, especially in relation to vegetation management, and they don't necessarily line up with heritage or local protection.
this is just another checking mechanism,
It is, yeah.
really. If it doesn't come off, it doesn't come off. If there's an issue with other policies, I mean, that's up to the investigation. When you place something on here, you investigate everything before it goes on here anyway. So there's always that.
So there is probably room for the policy to say, well, except for 3 metres, I don't know how you word it, but 3 metres from your boundary fences and that, because...
Look, through the chair, it starts to become a little bit more problematic, but simply because, look, this is probably a poor example because there are already legislative protections, but if you had a scar tree and it was sitting on a state reserve and it was just over the fence, a scar tree is a bad example why it already has protections under legislation, but if you had a significant piece of flora there, you wouldn't want a whole of spoilers come in and actually start to clear things. But that said, council's ability as the land manager and a roads maker does actually allow us to go in and knock down vegetation and clear things outside of any other legislation. It gives us the ability to create that, essentially what's community infrastructure, without having to worry about those kind of other legislations. I just don't know whether there's any additional wording you could put here to maybe satisfy you that the aim of this policy is to capture local significance, and other council policies should be read in conjunction with this policy, or something like that.
Scar trees, I have seen have become a very big issue, because I can take and show you in the gas fields where a tree that was scarred by a dozer when they cleared the land because the dozers weren't big enough. 20 years later, that's a scar tree.
Look,
that's where the issue comes. Who decides whether it's a scar tree?
I think there is an anthropological process that happens with cultural heritage, but look, it's probably just an example is that the flora grows wherever it wants to grow, and ultimately it's not unusual for it to grow on any land, including state-controlled land. I take your point in relation to road making. There's unlike Aboriginal cultural heritage has a significant place in the Roads Act as well, so we have preservations there. But if you had some other locally significant flora, and we go to many different areas of Australia, and it might be a mahogany tree, or it might be something else. It's really just going. You're right. There are, when you're clearing for roads, you've got some power, but what the aim of this is to try and capture that information so it's not lost forever.
Yep.
Leo, did you have something to say?
Oh, just a comment there in terms of the statement number 3. The wording hasn't changed from the original policy that was adopted last year. It's only those 2 sentences.
Yeah.
Okay, any other questions?
Well, I do though.
Yeah, please go ahead, Councillor
My
Taylor.
question is, and I'm sorry if I might have missed it the last time I came round, but what exactly are the changes here?
With the,
you weren't here.
basically subject to written
just that.
consent or permission of the owner.
Because, see, last week you had it highlighted, didn't you, Leo? And this is the next product.
Okay,
Yeah.
so this is the only thing that's changed?
Just
in
for the
that product?
benefit of the councillor, and on page 10, what have we got? 109, under the eligibility criteria. So it's just the added bit, which is the heritage places. Everything else remains the same to do with flora and fauna. Nothing's been changed. It's just the inclusion of the heritage places to read into the document. So that's the only change.
Okay, well, Councillor Guthrie, and did you want to say something to Councillor O'Neill?
Yeah, on that point that was just up there.
Councillor Guthrie and then Councillor O'Neill.
Yeah, just would like to suggest, because as a landholder, I'm very, very aware of years and years of freeholding land and feelings of ownership of the land. I'm wondering whether we could put register may be extended to privately owned land, but to be subject to written consent. So you're actually making it very clear that the
only goes onto the
legal
register.
landholder has the right to either give permission or deny permission, and maybe put that even in bold or some sort of, just to stand out, but to be subject to written consent or permission of the owner.
And this is advisory. This is not going to cause anything to happen except for council and council staff will know about it, and we may quite well have to override it because of other reasons, but it's just to give the information out. Councillor O'Neill.
I was just going to suggest that while Councillor Guthrie has shared the view that state-controlled land doesn't have an owner, it does, and that's the state government, and we should afford them the same respect as we'll afford our landowners, and it stays in there, and that we write to them subject to written consent and permission of the owner, which is the state government and the relevant department.
So mirror the same thing, but
I just leave it, add the bit, subject to, which I don't necessarily think that enhances it, but keep in there the bit about state-controlled land. Right,
And
Councillor
get
Edwards,
consent.
what are you happy with?
Yeah, look, I'm you know, I'm okay with that. I mean, I can understand all the aspects we're talking about, and I, as a landowner, would be in the same boat really. But I'd just like to emphasise that, in my opinion, there's nothing really untoward about this. It's just not, you know, we're not trying to take anyone's land off them. We're not trying to control the land. We're not doing anything. It's just that if there's an item there, and you know, the Flora and Fauna thing got passed before,
Well,
and this is...
Councillor Edwards, if it's not answering a question.
Oh, sorry, I'm happy with it.
You're happy with what's said at the moment?
Yeah, I'm happy with that. Wait a minute, I'll just read it again. Register as extended privately owned land or state control land, but be written.
I think
Yep. Sorry, what's
I
that?
think
Lee?
you have to delete or other relevant council policies.
You think that'll
Yeah,
be
that-
problematic, do you?
Well, you're seeking consent or permission of the owner. That's got nothing to do.
Yeah, that's got nothing to do with it,
that
that's
falls
right.
out.
Just this policy.
Yeah, no, I'm happy with that.
And just for your satisfaction, in the eligibility criteria, before it goes any further, we check that it's going to be, it has that consent. If it hasn't got that written consent from the owner, it won't proceed any further.
Nothing will happen, nothing. Righto, so I'm happy to second that. Are we happy to go with that? Does the member wish to speak to the motion?
Yeah, I will. As I was saying before, I certainly understand, you know, people's concerns about it, but I'd just like to reiterate that it's really nothing more than a register, and that's all it is. Like anything you sign, it's a register. You turn up, you sign a register. All of that is incorporating items of significance into a register, and the you know, within the council, the control mechanism really is left up to the operational staff, and they would look at that through the eligibility criteria. So, and look, without going into it all, there's many things around Maranoa that, you know, if people know about this, they'll put them on there. And, you know, I won't go into the various things, but there would be a lot of significant items around here, which some people don't even know whose land they're on, whether they're on state control, whether they're on privately owned, but that the introduction of that paragraph there will allay fears that it is, you know, allay fears that there's nothing more than a register. So, but anyway, I just think it's another policy which will, you know, please a lot of the community.
Okay, does anyone else wish to speak?
I have a question.
Please go ahead.
Who in council will deem whether it is significant or not? Like, how do we deem what I think is significant to me, you might not think to you? Like, how do we, like, I mean, there's obvious ones, but whose job are we giving in council when you look at the processes to say yes or no and to deem? Because we can't just have anything. Like, I could think of a shed that I built today might be significant, but it really isn't culturally significant.
Okay, well, just one thing that I can say, because I think I was involved with maybe the first one as well, and that is that the idea is people can put it on there and say that tree has cultural significance. You know, my mother was born next to that tree or whatever, and that situation is on the register, so we don't flatten the tree with a grader or whatever. And if it ever needs to, and then it would come to council, and if we have to build a road there, then we try and negotiate it, otherwise the tree might have to go. But the worst thing is, I've had it after we've flattened something, that then we've got to try and solve the problem. So this is getting ahead of the curve, and it is not connected to a state register. It doesn't have any power. You're not controlling anything to do with private land, but it's about, especially for us, to know what it is. Councillor Hancock. So it would just sit on there, but as soon as it becomes a problem, as far as the council staff, I would imagine, the idea is that they bring it to council and say, do you want this on there? But in the meantime, they don't flatten that tree when they're doing some roadworks. They might go, okay, leave that tree, go around it. So it's just really a communication. Like it was said, it's a register.
Like the tree at Campbell's Park.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
It's exactly like that. So you would put that on and we think that it's got some borers in it and we go, well, it might have more significance. But then they would bring it to council and then council says, well, we've got no option, we have to do something. And then we make a decision and there's no power to this except for knowledge, really.
Can I just say something? You know, another example might be an old, an old sign, from the old amalgamation days, which is still standing somewhere, showing the boundaries, between the two shires. And
They're all good.
And it might
I
still
think there are
be,
a lot of them in people's backyards.
No, but it might still be standing there, and that becomes an item of significance. Now, when the appropriate officer goes and has a look at that, they will determine through the eligibility criteria whether or not it's an item of significance, and where it is. I mean, it might be on state-controlled land, and then again, it might be on private land,
But to
or
answer
it might be on council land.
To answer Councillor Hancock's point, as way I envisage it, Councillor, is that it will come to council eventually, if it's an issue, if it's causing, and councillors will have to make the final decision, but most of it's advisory because it could be on someone else's land we have no control over. Okay, does anyone else?
Well, that's pretty confusing, Mr Mayor, because you're saying that anybody could put anything on the register, but Councillor Edwards is saying that there's going to be an eligibility criteria that staff will go off. So I actually think that there's a bit more work to be done here, because is there an eligibility criteria? And if so, what is it? We need to see that. And we have to all be, if you're going to put this through, it's got to be, everyone's got to know the policy. Is it anything can go on, or is it an eligibility criteria?
Just for Councillor Hancock's information, the policy actually in section 5 outlines the sort of eligibility criteria and what we're looking for. If someone wishes to put something forward, there's a number of dot points there for all those different categories.
And it's been...
Thank you for clarifying that, Director. There is an eligibility criteria. Thank you so much.
Righto. Does anyone else wish to speak? We're going to the vote. All those in favour? Okay, that's 9-0. If there's nothing else, Kel, is there?
Only,
The Endeavour.
Only this last
The
one.
additional one.
This one?
Notice of motion.
It's been laid on the table
To a future briefing.
to a
yeah.
future,
Meeting, yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, the Endeavour one has, yeah.
Yes.
Oh, the
So that we can do the investigations around building works and lease.
Costings, and we'll find out about the lease.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'd like to move a notice without motion, or notice of motion, subject heading councillor to partner with Grow Rural to invite Billet Families for Roma. I'd like to move that gets put on the agenda. Do we have a seconder?
can I ask?
Councillor Edwards?
That's a good question.
Yes.
Why? Like, this is when you say the subject heading makes it sound more in depth than what it is.
It is.
This is just for council to promote on our social media platforms.
Yeah, it is. But also, I think it's important for council to be aware of it. So, so it is a little bit outside the square, but not too far.
But it could have just been done.
It could have been,
Yeah.
but if councillors didn't want it to happen, then it might have been something that. So I think this is quicker. Okay, so we've got a seconder. All those in favour of putting it on the agenda?
Yes.
Okay, 9-0. Council to partner with Grow Rural to invite Billet Families in Roma. I'd like to move the council help promote Grow Rural program, become a Billet family to health students for one night on the 14th of October with the community through council's official channels and communication platforms. Do we have a seconder? Councillor McMullen. Any opposition? Does anyone wish to speak to it?
Question?
Please go ahead.
It says there's $50 for students to cover incidentals. Is that council paying?
I don't think so.
Who would be paying that?
This is actually a health program, so it would be,
Grow rural.
absolutely.
Yeah, it's nothing about council.
Nothing to do with council,
No,
but here we
nothing.
are.
So to get on the register, what do you do? Like,
There must be a phone number. I think they're looking for eight billets or something.
Yeah, there's more information on the back.
okay.
So there's not a financial cost to it, is there?
No, no, I think there's an incentive payment too.
Oh, right,
People who
okay.
are
Oh, for
wishing to
the
do it.
food and, yeah, right. Okay. So, I'll speak to this. Certainly very happy to promote it. We're going to have a dinner, show them a bit of the bush and on the 14th. And if people would like to put their hand up to billet one of the students, then they're very welcome to contact Grow Rural. Okay, so no one else wish to speak? On that note, we'll go to the vote. All those in favour?
Yes.
9-0. Any further business, councillors? Righto, then we'll close the meeting at 3:14 PM and thank you for your attendance.